This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson with you. Michael Remis jumping in a minute. We got a busy show today. Manitoba Open. Well, I guess it's officially on, although they're not playing any golf yet because of that crazy storm we had last night. We'll look forward to catching up with Scott Pritchard, the executive director of PGA Tour Canada from Southwood in a few minutes to get the latest on the tournament and look ahead to the weekend. We'll also have a visit from Ken Wiebe. Wiebe's World will be live with us, I believe, from the western part of the province, getting ready for a golf tournament of his own. Lots to get to with Wiebe. And then later on in the show, Andy McNamara. What a great time to have Andy Mac on. We were going to talk about some NFL news and notes from around training camp. But, of course, Andy is the card-carrying member of the Canadian contingent of the Browns fan club, now knows the punishment for their new quarterback, Deshaun Watson. We'll discuss that and all the other big stories in and around the National Football League. Great to have you with us. First, before we get going, a big shout-out to all the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day, including Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, Assiniboia Downs, Canadian Club, Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Little Brown Jug, Not Auto Corp, Boston Pizza, Breezy Bend, Royal Sports, Culligan Water, Aikens Lake, F Apparel, Wallace & Wallace, and our friends over at Vita Health. So lots to get to, and this is a bit of a different show today. Let's get Michael Remis in here and get things going. Remo, how are you today? A little bit of a different operation on WST, especially for our YouTube viewers.
Yeah, well, we're getting ready for me to take some time off for the first time ever. I got Alex filling in, managing the show. So I'm kind of just here. I'm going to be working on some other stuff, but I'm happy to give all the commentary. We were sitting here like 2 hours ago, 11:30. We're like, man, like, what are we going to talk about today? Like, what's going on here? And thank you, Nazem Kadri, or Elliot or Kevin Weeks, whoever I need to thank for announcing it today.
Brad Treleving, that's who we have to thank.
Like, we don't need, I agree. We don't need every signing July 1. There's a lot of signings. Like, we need to save some for mid-August when there's nothing going on, and you just have this Kadri bomb. It was wild to see Calgary as the destination.
Yeah, no doubt. And obviously, we're going to get to all of that. But hey, an official WST welcome to Alex, who's going to be with us for a good portion of the next couple weeks. You can welcome in the chat, folks, and we really are appreciative to have him jump on and keep this thing rolling while Remis gets some very deserved time off. It's going to be weird, though. I mean, we're now, 16, 17, 18 months into this? I don't even know. But it is true. There has never been a segment of WST that has been not operated, produced by yours truly until this moment right now on a little bit of a practice run for Rack. So for Alex. So anyways, great to have him with us, and we'll look forward to having Alex and keep this show running for the next couple of weeks, with a couple of days exception that Remis is going to be popping in. And who knows, when you are out west, maybe we'll get some words and wisdom from the West Coast when you're with us. But bottom line today, we are going to be talking some golf because the big story here locally is the Manitoba Open. But as anyone that maybe is not able to sleep through literally anything found out last night, another massive storm, and it has really impacted the golf course. And listen, Southwood has amazing drainage, but when you get dropped, at 5, 6 in the morning, right an hour before guys are supposed to tee off 50 to 60 millimeters of rain, it really has impacted the golf course, and it's still raining right now. So I'm not sure. We're still waiting on further. We'll be on. That being said, the positive is that the weather does look a lot better once we get out of today. So, frankly, for people that are going to be heading out there Monday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, there might be a little bit of extra golf to be played because they're going to have to try and squeeze in 4 rounds likely over the course of 3 days.
Yeah, you got woken up last night by that. I think it was like 4 or 5 a.m. The lights, or like my bedroom, was just flashing from the constant nonstop lightning. Huge rainstorm. I saw Scott Billick tweeted at like 4 a.m. like, some
Billick's a light
rainstorm.
sleeper.
He's like, some rainstorm, huh? And I just like favorited it and tried to go back to bed. What time was that? I'm looking at his tweet because I definitely favorited it at 4:10 a.m. and like my room was just flashing. It was so crazy. So was able to get back to sleep. But yeah, not ideal for golf, Huss. 4:10 a.m. And I think it had been like a week we didn't have rain. I was wondering if I should start having to water my grass. And this week I really haven't had to because we had a big rainstorm. I think was it Monday and again last night.
Yeah, Monday was nuts. And you know, it's funny. I kind of figured that, before we talked to Scott Pritchard and Ken and Andy, that the first 20 minutes or so of the program, we might be talking about my food picks from the baseball game last night. We'll save that for the end of the program, I think, because as you mentioned, we do have big breaking news in the National Hockey League, and that is Nazem Kadri is seemingly off the market, and he is going to the Calgary Flames on a 7-year, $7 million AAV deal for a total of $49 million. It took a while. He got the long-term deal. Certainly, I think, we've been using the evolving hockey numbers who have been pretty much on it throughout. I mean, it's been amazing how close their predictions have been for these deals. Wasn't the case for Nazem Kadri. I mean, certainly with the season that he had last year, it was expected that he might get in excess of $8 million. But this is a great example, Remis, that there's only so much money to go around in this flat cap world. And even for a player as in demand as Nazem Kadri, maybe that full bank-breaking deal wasn't quite there. That being said, no one's going to be holding any bake sales for Naz. He's getting almost $50 million to join the Calgary Flames, a team that he declined a trade to in 2019, interestingly enough.
Yeah, I think part of that decline was that he just liked Toronto. It wasn't anything against Calgary. It's just, you like where you are, and we can all agree moving sucks. It's terrible. So I think you like the situation. He had a great year last year. Nazem Kadri, huge break, 87 points in 71 games. His previous high was 61. I think a couple things working against him. You had that failed free agent class, Andrew Ladd, Louis Eriksson, David Backes here that we keep talking about over and over again. I mean, he's 31 years old. I think there's, you're not going to give him the huge years and term. I think there's an understanding that the last couple of years of this contract isn't going to, may not work out. But for him, you get a long-term deal, just take it. And I said to you off air, you don't want to get Klingberg, where you ask for too much and you're forced to take a 1-year deal and you try to do it again next year. Get the money now. And we saw Huberdeau take it. I mean, Huberdeau from Calgary, he had never played for them. He had never lived in the city. You don't know how it's going to work. It could work out horribly, but if someone offers you, over 10 mil a year, you say yes. So Nazem Kadri signing with Calgary, and I think Brad Treliving, I wonder if he's overtaken Pierre Dorion for the offseason champion, at least degree of difficulty. Where we thought Calgary was a couple months ago, this team's screwed. Gaudreau picked Columbus of all places. Tkachuk doesn't want to sign there. Now you turn, you turn Tkachuk into Huberdeau and Uyghur. Maybe you do sign Uyghur and a first-round pick, and we can get into the second part of this. This Kadri signing, and now you get Kadri as well. So they're deep down the middle. They might even be better than last year. I'm not sure, but Calgary, I mean, Brad Treliving has done a great job keeping them competitive here in a Western Conference that is not very good.
Well, and the Pacific Division as well. I mean, I think a lot of people had sort of just handed it over to the Edmonton Oilers after what happened with Johnny Hockey and Matthew Tkachuk. But it's a very different looking Flames team. But I think certainly, at least in the short term, for the first year going into next season, you could argue that they might be close to as competitive as they were last season. Although I'm not sure how you can replicate the magic of that line with Elias Lindholm along with Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk. I mean, that 5-on-5 was the best line in hockey last year. They all had career years. I believe they all had 40 goals. I mean, it was an absolute bulldozer of a line. Now, those two top players are gone. Lindholm is still there and one of the top two-way centers in the game, and for my money. But adding in Huberdeau, who set an NHL record for points on the left wing last year, and now Kadri coming in, it's certainly an aggressive move by Brad Treliving to maintain this window and the competitive nature of the Calgary Flames right now, both in the Pacific Division and the Western Conference. And I'll say this, dude, like you nailed it. The degree of difficulty, like what was thrown at Brad Treliving this year was as challenging as any general manager in hockey, I think, faced. And the fact that he's coming out of it with Uyghur, Huberdeau, and now with Nazem Kadri is, well, it's a masterpiece today. However, there has to be some level of caution, big picture, knowing that Jonathan Huberdeau is now signed through 38 years old, and Nazem Kadri as well will be property of the Calgary Flames, barring a trade or a buyout, until 38 years old right now. So it's pretty damn clear that the time is now for the Calgary Flames, and they are not willing to walk off that or take a step back, despite losing Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah, it's incredible work here by Brad Treliving when we thought that, okay, well, let's go. I guess they're going for a rebuild, right? I mean, Gaudreau doesn't want to be there. Now there is Tkachuk. Well, you might as well just trade everyone and start up, but full credit to them. And, you see so many teams do this. They pack it in, they trade assets. They, try to say, okay, we're going to rebuild, maybe like Chicago did. But full credit to Calgary. They're saying, you know what, we had a first place team. We're going to try to get back to it. So they had a bunch of money lying around. They weren't going to give Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk. So they figured out how to give it to Huberdeau and Nazem Kadri now. And, maybe Mackenzie Weegar. I do wonder if there are more moves. They did have to make a salary cap move here. We're hearing reports of Sean Monahan going to Montreal in the trade. That hasn't been made official. Or we haven't heard what's coming back, right? Or what's going with him.
It
If
hasn't
it's the
been
first
confirmed. Essentially, all the insiders have now basically tweeted out it's 7x7 for Kadri. He's a Calgary Flame. Part of what needed to take place was Calgary finding a spot for Sean Monahan's contract. Come on down, Montreal Canadiens. Now, I have seen it rumored that the first-round pick that came from Florida to Calgary might be the piece that goes to Montreal. And hell, if they're able to pull that off, good for the Habs. There's only 1 year left on Sean Monahan's deal at $6.375. So if that's the cost to get $6.5 million off the cap for the year of a future first-round pick, Montreal in their situation would be insane not to take it. But again, I mean, this is an aggressive swing from Brad Treliving. Who knows if he's going to be with the Flames in 3, 4, 5 years down the road, never mind at the end of these deals. The job right now is to win. The job right now is to be competitive. And I think it's also even bigger for the Flames organization, Reem, because we all know that they play in probably the biggest dump of an arena in the National Hockey League right now. It's long overdue that they get, a new home for this, new home to replace the Saddle Dome. And I think last year, obviously there's a bunch of politics that are involved in Calgary that I don't even really know or want to get into. But if you're filling the building, you've got an exciting team and you're making the playoffs and you're contending, it's a hell of a lot easier to get people on board for a big project like that. And I think the Calgary Flames are in a much better situation organizationally with these players on board than if they just sort of packed it up and said this is a full rebuild after losing Johnny Hockey and Tkachuk.
Yeah, just on Sean Monahan. So Elliot Friedman says Monahan is going to Montreal, but we don't know if someone's going with him officially or what's coming back. And as far as the Calgary arena goes, I went to a game there years ago. I mean, the upper deck was basically like the Winnipeg arena upper deck. It reminded me a lot of the
Yeah.
Winnipeg Arena. That's how old this arena is. And we talked about how much FOMO we got when we saw them partying in Calgary during the playoffs. Major FOMO, that parking lot. It's a fear of missing out, by the way, for people who may not know. But
You know the acronym?
I think for the acronym. But I think maybe, like, could a good team drive them to get a new arena? I have no idea. They've been fighting about it there for so long. What are they going to do? Who's going to pay for it? Uh, you hope that it gets resolved for Calgary. You think that it will. We'll just have to wait and see.
Here's the thing, though. If you take such a big step back and the team sucks all of a sudden and you've got 5,000 empty seats every night, it's a pretty hard ask to say, hey, we really need a new arena to make this all happen. I mean, I think there's so many reasons why Calgary doesn't. It's sort of weird for a city of that size, of that prominence in Calgary, to have the worst stadium or worst arena in the National Hockey League right now. And McMahon Stadium would be, I mean, I haven't been to where the Alouettes are playing right now, but I mean, it's sort of a, that Molson Stadium, they sort of rejigged a smaller spot. Ottawa's got a new ring, a new building. Hamilton does. The Argos are at BMO Field. I think clearly McMahon is the worst stadium by a lot in the Canadian Football League as well. So they've got some things to do. But one of the things that they got to do now is the city is welcome in another top center. And, you add in and you look at where the Flames are right now, with the addition of Kadri, instead of having Gaudreau and Kachuk on Elias Lindholm's wings, it looks like it'll be Huberdeau and potentially Tyler Toffoli. You got Mangiapane and Blake Coleman with Kadri, and you still have Michael Backlund and Dylan Dubé on that third line. Now, they'll tweak out and probably bring in, they do have some younger players going through, but to me, the real strength of the team continues to be the blue line. And a blue line that right now, until Mackenzie Weegar gets his raise, pretty damn affordable. Chris Tanev was a beast last year. I think he may very well play with Weegar on that top pairing. And then you got Noah Hannafin with Rasmus Anderson, who, for my money, is one of the best value contracts in the National Hockey League. And Zadorov and Shillington both had strong years last year. And, of course, Jacob Markstrom. So I think it was incumbent on the organization to try to not take too far of a step back. But if you would have told me today that we'd be talking about a Flames team with Jonathan Huberdeau signed for the next 9 seasons, Kadri for the next 7 seasons, and Mackenzie Weegar on the books as well, pretty damn good work by Brad Treleving. And hey, we know how important it is to get term on contracts here in Winnipeg. And again, the final years of these deals may be a little ugly, but for the foreseeable future, Calgary is in a pretty nice situation, and they won't be having a lot of the conversations they had last year about those contracts and the same chats that we're going to be having on this show throughout this season and heading into next offseason, with 1 year left on Wheeler, Scheifele, Connor Hellebuck, and of course, Pierre-Luc Dubois under team control.
Yeah, I guess the Jets are going to have that Calgary type offseason pretty soon. And, it's amazing. You look at a team like Calgary, who's making all these moves, and we're sitting here kind of twiddling our thumbs, waiting for the Jets to do something, anything. The biggest moves, signing Mason Appleton to a 3-year deal as an RFA. And you were talking to me like so who didn't get Kadri? The team that was rumored this whole time, the New York Islanders. And we had heard, was it last week, that someone tweeted out, they got like 4 moves coming. And we said, Kadri and just signing their RFAs. But they've really done absolutely nothing, the Islanders. So if you had to say, what's going to happen now because of Kadri being signed, the Islanders, I don't know what's up with them. And also, what does it mean for some other free agents? Or how's Colorado going to replace him? Do they go and sign Paul Stastny? Is he the guy there? Another team like the Islanders or the Avs. Yeah, I'm going to say if the team like the Islanders or the Avs has to make a trade.
Well, there's a bunch of teams that have to do that right now. And, I'm not sure. Maybe we'll have to see what sort of cap space, at least. Although it's so difficult to really figure out what the Islanders are doing right now, because we really don't know if Lou has made a bunch of moves that aren't showing up on the cap right now. Right now, it says they've got $11 million in projected cap space. But, of course, that's without signing Kiefer Bellows, Noah Dobson, and Alex Romanov, and all those players are going to take up a significant amount of that cap. But Paul Stastny, I think, bringing it back to Winnipeg, is a key person in this entire mix. I mean, I've said for the last little bit, considering where the Jets are right now, it sure would be nice to get Paul Stastny back in the mix for one more season here in Winnipeg, considering where this team is at. On the ice, he certainly helps, and I think off the ice, he's a very, very important part of this team that really hasn't changed very much from last year. The thought was that if Kadri, if the Avalanche found a way to move, potentially a Girard to get the amount of cap space that they would allow them to get Kadri signed, that takes Stastny out of the mix. With Kadri gone, I mean, they're looking for a cheaper option at center. Now, is Paul Stastny going to come in and deliver an 89-point season? No. But certainly for far less than Nazem Kadri is commanding, with the opportunity to win a Stanley Cup, everything that Paul Stastny brings to the table, I think, would be attractive to the Colorado Avalanche. Not sure whether that happens, but I do think that opening in Colorado makes it even less likely, if you were still holding out any hope like I've been, that maybe Paul Stastny circles back and comes back to the Jets. Say it's probably a little more unlikely after this move today.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the cap, projected cap space here on Cap Friendly. The Avs got $3.9 million projected remaining. I think Paul Stastny would fit nice under there. We know his connection. He played there before, went to college there. As for the Jets, maybe they try to take it. There's teams over the cap now. Edmonton, we've talked about this week. Washington's over. Who Vegas is over. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I don't think it seems like at the end of the year, Stastny had kind of, I don't want to say went scorched earth on the Jets, but just the way he spoke at the end of the season was honest, but seemed like, he was ready to move on to a team that was prepared to play for each other.
Well, see, part of me, I mean, if you were just leaving, why do you say all that? I mean, maybe I'm just Paul Stastny's a stand-up guy and it basically had it and said, hey, this is what needs to be said for these guys going forward, but wasn't going. I sort of took it that and I think I was wrong, to be perfectly honest, considering what he said after the fact, knowing that there was the potential that he'd be going elsewhere and wanted to sign with a contending team. But I sort of took that as he was going to be here and part of solution. Either guys needed to get with it or get out. And obviously that changed. The tone of that entire conversation changed a little bit when it became apparent that his first choice was to sign with the Stanley Cup contending team. And unfortunately for Winnipeg, at this point after the season that they had last year, probably hard to convince certainly someone that was right in the middle of it that you're going to bring it all back and things are going to be night and day as opposed to what last year happened. All that being said, hopefully that is the case. Lots on Rick Bonus's plate. And of course, we'll get to that with Ken Wiebe coming up in a few minutes here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. So yes, we'll save the food convo from the game last night, although there was some beauties, till the end of the program. We're also going to be talking to Deshaun Watson and his now negotiated settlement of suspension after the National Football League's appeal. Andy McNamara is going to join us, and we'll have much more hockey talk focusing on the Winnipeg Jets a little bit later on. By the way, little announcement for you folks. We spent a lot of time talking about the great addition, the biggest free agent the Jets have signed this offseason, Sarah Orlesky. Sarah is going to be on the program tomorrow. So I know many of you are big fans of Sarah. I'm really looking forward to talking to her about finishing up at TSN, her new opportunity, what she's going to be doing with the Winnipeg Jets, and maybe look ahead to what it'll be like being on the sidelines for the final time at TSN in front of a packed house at a sold-out Banjo Bowl later on in a few weeks. But first up, we're going to head out to Southwood to check in on the Manitoba Open. But before we do that, got to give a big thanks to our friends at Vita Health Fresh Market. Vita Health stocked with Winnipeg's best selection of local, organic, and natural grocery supplements and beauty products, all at great prices. An incredible selection of amazing barbecue options for you and your family, or whether you're entertaining, and a grab-and-go deli for folks that are on the run with delicious and healthy fresh sandwiches, soups, and salads, as only Vita Health can do. Pop down and see them at one of 7 Winnipeg locations, or check them out online at their new fully shoppable website. You can schedule a in-store pickup or a delivery with Instacart. Man, it was cool having Westy on the program last week. And when he did, he mentioned that he had just gotten a dog run over at Wallace & Wallace. Of course, Wallace & Wallace are the fencing experts in town. And they had that great involvement with the Bark in the Park last week. But they also are Winnipeg's leading garage door specialist, working with Clopay, the largest garage door manufacturer in the world. And despite supply chain issues, you can still get a beautiful new garage door delivered and installed within 4 weeks, just in time for the chaos around the corner post Labor Day, when your garage door is going to be going up and down between school, hockey practices, and everything your busy family has going on. By the way, new garage doors can also add up to 4% to the value of your home. With 161 styles of garage doors to choose from, there's a style that's right for your home. Visit them at wallacedoors.com. Give them a call or visit their showroom over on Lawson Road. Just got the email yesterday. My F Apparel custom suits ready to pick up. Man, the entire process was phenomenal working with Andrew and his team down at F Apparel. And I'm very much looking forward to maybe I'm actually looking forward to doing another suit show or so on Winnipeg Sports Talk going forward. Of course, got a wedding coming up. The gala honoring Teemu Selanne and Teppo Numminen. Probably bring it out for that as well. Bottom line, guys, is if you need to step up your game, head on down to F Apparel. Custom suits beginning at just $400 and a great summer special right now with 3 custom shirts for only $210. Find out everything F can do for you at it's EPHapparel.com. Check out their great special for your entire wedding party and visit them in person down at 190 Smith Street. And once again, just have to give a big thanks to the amazing team over at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. My God, we had such a great weekend a couple of weeks ago. I'm already counting down the days to get there next year. But if you are thinking about an amazing friends and family trip where you can be on the water after the flight in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, or maybe an incredible corporate event after being on Zoom calls for the last couple of years, Aikens Lake is the place to do it. Find out more online at aikenslake.com or hit him up on Twitter. Our good friend Pitt Turan is always there for you at Aikens Lake as well. All right, so Ken Wiebe's going to join us later on. We'll have more on what happened today with Nazem Kadri signing in Calgary, where that leaves the Jets, what Ken may be hearing about Paul Stastny, as well as all the other big stories on the Jets offseason. But right now, let's get ready for the Manitoba Open and welcome in Scott Pritchard, the Executive Director of PGA Tour Canada, for the latest from Southwood. Scott, what's up, man? Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
I guess this is not the way you wanted to start the return of PGA Tour Canada Winnipeg, but unfortunately, you guys have had quite a bit of practice dealing with some inclement weather at your event so far this year. This is old hat for you.
Yeah, definitely. We've had some challenges this season with weather. I think people in Manitoba that follow the tour will know we had some issues up at Elk Ridge, which was unfortunate. But we made the best of a terrible situation. The ownership group at Elk Ridge, really stepped up. So we're excited to get back to Elk Ridge for next year. But by and large, we've been able to complete all of our events and play a full competition, so 4-day competition. So overall, we have a great team on our competition side that we'll figure out a way to get the guys to play the full event. And it is an unfortunate start to the actual competition, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, but yesterday was an amazing day. The Pro-Am was awesome, and the support from the community, bringing back the event after a 2-year hiatus has been amazing to see. And the guys here at Southwood have done an amazing job, which we can talk about, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, well, I mean, listen, and I think the weather does bode well for the weekend. And hey, for fans that are getting out there, they may get some bonus golf if we got to squeeze in a little bit of what was supposed to happen today into the next 3 days. Scott Pritchard from PGA Tour Canada is with us. Scott, you mentioned 2 years away. This is now rebranded, and it was rebranded a couple of years ago as the Manitoba Open, which has so much great history here in our province. You've got a title sponsor this year. I mean, for folks that maybe are just realizing this is happening right now, give us a bit of a rundown on the tournament. Well, we'll talk about the tour as well and where you guys are at in the season before. But as far as this weekend, what can fans look forward to if they decide to come out and see these great athletes go at it?
Well, I think it's kind of twofold. One is, like I said earlier, the people here at Southwood have done an amazing job at, really bringing this and making it into a community event. We have Family Day tomorrow. There's lots of activities happening in and around the golf course for everyone. And one of the cool initiatives that they've done this year is we have a VIP lounge that's sponsored by Play Now. On the 18th green, where if you have a general admission ticket, you can actually get into a VIP covered area with food and beverage service and watch all the action, right against the 18th green. And then we also have a VIP section, which is on the back of the green for sort of upgraded sponsors and the support from various sponsors across the community. So it's been amazing to see what they've done. And obviously we've had 2 years to plan and reinvent ourselves here in Winnipeg. And, again, I can't thank the guys here enough for what they've been able to pull off.
You mentioned that cool VIP area for people with general admission tickets. I mean, as a fan of golf and someone that's been to a number of events, both, here in Manitoba and, around North America, it's amazing to see how tournaments and spectating has sort of changed over even the last 10 years. I mean, our good friend Ryan Hart, who was involved in this tournament in his prior name, they got things going on the 9th hole at Pine Ridge. They really sort of try to get that hockey theme into it. We've now seen it at the RBC Canadian Open. It seems like the tournaments themselves and the tours are really trying to add some more unique viewing experiences for fans so they could come out and enjoy themselves a little different than they would be able to watching any event on television.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think you're seeing that across all sports, right? And arenas are sort of changing and reimagining how the general seating areas are being set up, because a lot of the time people just want to come and be social. And, the game's happening and, we'll check out the scoreboard, as not necessarily a diehard fan, but they're going more for the social aspects. And so you're seeing that happen in golf as well. And, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention on the 17th hole here at Southwood, they've got the Castle Mortgage Party Zone, and it's a scaled down version of what happens at Waste Management. There's a live DJ there playing in between hole or groups that come through. They were there all day yesterday during the Pro-Am, and a few chirps were had for sure. So yeah, definitely trying to, again, what I said earlier, reimagine from a fan's point of view and what they want to see and how they want to engage with the activity and the sport. And so, we're obviously the weather for today is throwing a little damper on that, but we're excited to see what transpires over the next 3 days.
Obviously, the move to Southwood has been great, even pre-pandemic and post. This is a golf course, and I think the fact that we've had this lengthy delay just speaks to how crazy the weather has been, because this is a course that, has, incredible drainage. It's been built that way. But maybe just speak to the course itself and how challenging it can be for players. This course essentially is two completely different golf courses depending on how much wind. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I think the best example that I could give is if you look at 2018 when we first played here, Tyler McCumber won, who's now on the PGA Tour. He shot, I don't have the exact number, but it was like 25 or 6 under par. And there was no wind that week, right? So to your point, the defense here of this golf course is the wind. And so when we look at 2018, when Derek Barron won, 16 under was the winning score, which is, that's a real good test of golf for the level of play that these guys are at. So I think you'd probably have a 50-50 split on the field if you're asked the players to say, hey, what would you rather see, a shootout or tougher conditions? So, either way, the course is going to produce a great winner. This event and the history of this event, if dating back to years at Pine Ridge and Southwood, back in the day, there's a long list of very well-known and established players that have won this event and then gone on to even better things on the PGA Tour and worldwide.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, I had the regular viewers know I am a card-carrying member of Team Tony Finau. He's our guy, and part of the reason for that is that he played here, and once he got to the PGA Tour, came back on our show and talked about his experience playing in Canada and what that meant for him growing going forward. And now, obviously, he's one of the top players in the world. Talking a little bit, if you would, about the development nature of the tour overall, how talented these players are in PGA Tour Canada, and some of the names that have now graduated just in the past few years that are now pushing for, doing big things in the FedEx Cup playoffs.
Yeah, so when we started PGA Tour Canada in 2013, and that was actually Tony Finau's first year in 2013, his only year on our tour, because he eventually got on to the Korn Ferry Tour, and now, as we know, multiple-time winner on the PGA Tour, and a great ambassador for the game, and a great guy, as you know. But since we started, we've had 54 players that have graduated to the PGA Tour. We have 17 victories by alums. Every Canadian that's played on the PGA Tour since 2013 started on our tour. So it's really providing an opportunity for the best top up-and-coming players in the world of professional golf, an opportunity to play on a PGA Tour sanctioned tour, learn how to travel, learn how to manage your game outside of the competition, dealing with the media, dealing with volunteers, fans, etc. So it's a real what we call a developmental tour, where you're going to come and learn the fundamentals, and then hopefully at the end of the year you finish in the top 10 and you get a promotion to the Korn Ferry Tour, and then from there go to the PGA Tour. And we've seen players that have played our tour and been on the PGA Tour within 2 years. Nick Taylor and is actually a good example of a player that played our tour in 2013, played on the Korn Ferry Tour in 2014, and then within 16 months of playing in Canada, he won on the PGA Tour. And Mackenzie Hughes, another Canadian player, had a similar progression. I think his was an 18-month gap before he actually played in Canada and then won on the PGA Tour. So, a lot of the guys in the field this week have experience on the PGA Tour, in majors, on the Korn Ferry Tour. It's just that they haven't, fully developed or had the opportunity to get on the PGA Tour, and now they do.
Well, these guys are so good. I mean, it is a razor-thin margin at times. I mean, one shot, one putt here and there between, winning tournaments, moving up, and that's because the competition is so great. And I would say that worldwide, but especially for Canadian golf. As we were talking off air, we've got 4 Canadian golfers playing this weekend in the BMW Championship in the top 70 of the PGA Tour. From your perspective, Scott, I mean, where is Canadian golf at right now, and how big a part is PGA Tour Canada in producing these stars that are now doing it on the best tour in the world?
Well, I think a lot of credit goes to our friend Derek Ingram in the program they have at Golf Canada, and what they've done in the last 10 to 12 years to really develop these players and identify top talent that wants to pursue a career in professional golf. We provide exemptions to 2 Golf Canada members of their national team every week. So we're giving those amateur and professional young players an opportunity to learn, what it's like to play in a PGA Tour sanctioned event. So for the amateurs, when they turn pro, they know where they're going, kind of thing. We found in the past, I remember talking to Roger Sloan, got an exemption into the Canadian Open. This was way back, and I thought he missed the cut. He's like, oh, I felt like a deer in the headlights. Like I didn't really know where I was going. And on the golf course, these guys are all super talented. But to my earlier point, it's really about managing the off-course responsibilities that you have, and that's managing your time. Eating well, preparing your practice schedule, making sure you're organizing your hotel and rental cars, you're running your own business essentially. And so when Roger mentioned that to me, a number of years ago, that was the impetus to get a partnership with Golf Canada and really provide these young players an opportunity to come in. For example, they get on site, okay, where do I register for the tournament? Who do I talk to about getting a caddy? And so we're giving them that opportunity to learn before they actually turn professional and pursue that career. But, all in all, Golf Canada has done a great job. We provide them the opportunity to learn. We actually have a high watermark this year of Canadians with status on PGA Tour Canada. We have 43 players. Our previous high was 37. We're seeing on average about 30 to 35 Canadians play in our events every week, which is up from years past. And Will Bateman from Edmonton, he won earlier this year in his hometown. He's number 2 on the Fortinet Cup points list. And then you've got Joey Savoie, Etienne Papineau. They're all playing well from week to week. Jared Dutoit. I mean, the list goes on. So I really think Canadian golf is in a good spot. I mean, if you look at the young girl finished second in the U.S. Women's Amateur, Brooke Henderson is competing week in and week out. So both on the male and female side, I think we're in a good space or in a good spot. Definitely, room for improvement, as I think we could all agree, but we're on the right track.
Scott, you mentioned high water mark. We're dealing with a little bit too much of that today, and we'll look forward to getting them back on. But listen, I don't need to ask you about what the last couple of years has been like, because you've, like so many other businesses, it sucked not being able to, be out there and do what you love to do. That being said, the return of PGA Tour Canada this year, we're eighth event out of 11. How's it gone overall? How challenging has it been to come back, and how's it been received?
So, I mean, we were fortunate in we pivoted in 2020. We had a great partner in Canada Life who sponsored 4 events for Canadian players, and then we actually ran the tour last year, 8 unofficial events that provided Canadians the opportunity to earn status for this year. So we kept the lights on, as it were, and provided that opportunity. And I think that is playing a role in that high watermark. It's probably a bad cliche or whatever to use today, but so that's played a role. But we've been very fortunate in that we've added Fortinet as our cup sponsor. Fortinet Cup, and it means the competitive nature of the FedEx Cup. The top 10, as I mentioned earlier, will earn status on the Corn Ferry Tour next year, with our top player earning a full card, as well as a $100,000 prize pool at the end of the season that Fortinet has put up. The top player will earn $25,000. So lots on the line for them. And then obviously adding Centerport Canada Rail Park as the title sponsor for the Manitoba Open. I think those 2 partnerships, and we have a few more across the board, but it's showing that golf is a space that sponsors want to be in, and our players are benefiting from it. Our sponsors are benefiting from it, and so all in all, despite the 2 years of challenges and uncertainty, I think we've come out of it stronger, and the season has gone very well. I would say, and I say this often, everything within our control has gone pretty much how we expected. Things out of our control, i.e. some of the travel woes that we're all aware of, and some weather issues. Other than that, things are going well, and we're trending in the right direction.
Scott, how big is it for an event like this to have an NHL star like Mark Scheifele participate in?
Well, I think it's great. I think, this is a market, as you know, and as a Toronto guy looking in, it's almost like the fans in Winnipeg, I may get torched for this, but are like Toronto fans, but it just, it's more magnified here because it's smaller market. But I think having Mark play is great. I think, I felt bad for Mark when he played in 2018, and I even talked to him on Thursday or Tuesday about it. He didn't know what he was getting into, right? And he actually said, if you saw that, him playing in that event in 18 really opened his eyes to how good these players are. And he said, if I ever play in that event again, I want to make sure that I'm prepared and I'm ready. So he's brought his handicap down significantly. He's a pretty jovial guy. Like, he's just having fun out there. He's got Adam Brooks on the bag. They're walking around the course playing the practice. And I actually gave him a bit of a chirp because he's got a big staff bag. And I said, "Oh, I thought you said Adam was your friend." And he's like, "He is." I'm like, "You're making him carry that big staff bag." He's like, "No, it's super light. It's super light." And Adam kind of rolled his eyes, but no, it's good to see Mark out here. And, I know he sounds really excited about the upcoming season. And, I hope he takes it all in this week. And ultimately, I think everyone hopes he plays well. But even if he doesn't, it won't matter.
Well, and he's going to be playing with Braxton Coons too, of course, at the Pride of Breezy Bend right now. Back-to-back, first time ever, I believe, back-to-back junior champion and an amateur champion for the province, and another great bit of Manitoba flavor in the tournament as well. Scott, it's going to be a great weekend. Hopefully we can get this going at some point this afternoon, but certainly tomorrow into Saturday. And then, of course, Sunday, Southwood will be the place to be. Quickly, for folks that are just sort of maybe thinking about what they're doing this weekend and coming out, what do people need to know about taking in the Manitoba Open and what the PGA Tour Canada has going on in our province this week?
Yeah, so this event is great because parking is right on site. You come up right up to Southwood. You can park on site. You don't need to take any shuttles or drive in. You can also take Ubers out here if you want to partake in the 17th hole festivities. Or ManitobaOpen.com, where you can find more information on social. It's at Manitoba Open, and then you can also find information at PGA Tour Canada, PGAtour.com/Canada. The tons of information on both those sites and social channels where you can follow all the action.
Go get the squeegee and help out the guys get this show on the road.
I will say this: the golf community here in Winnipeg has been amazing. We've got pumps that have been driven in this morning from golf courses in the area. Fellow superintendents have really stepped up and offered help with both themselves and their staff. So just want to give a shout out to the golf community here in Winnipeg for really helping out. It's been impressive to see.
That is great to hear. Well, here's to a much better Friday than the start on Thursday for the event. And hopefully we'll have a great week of golf and a great champion at the end of it. All the best to you, Scott, and good luck to the rest of the competitors in the PGA Tour Canada event here in Winnipeg this week.
Thanks, and thanks for having me on, and good luck with everything. Appreciate it.
All right, great stuff with Scott Pritchard. Can tell you, and for those of you that are planning on getting out to the event, go on to Twitter, follow at Manitoba Open. They've been putting up updates throughout the day, and the latest one about an hour ago telling people to hang in. They're hopeful they'll get some players on the golf course today. Can tell you, though, count on it being a packed morning until sundown Friday of action at the Manitoba Open down at Southwood. All right. We'll get Kenny Wiebe come on. Of course, he's hydrating right now. You should all be as well. And when we think of water and water services in Winnipeg and Manitoba, it's always the good folks at Culligan, doing it for over 65 years here in Winnipeg and Manitoba. They've got water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems, drinking water systems, citywide water delivery services, as well as commercial and industrial water products and solutions. Whether for the home, your cottage, your office, Culligan is there for you. 694-5180, 1200 Sargent Avenue, and drinkculligan.com. Well, I don't know if there's many Flames fans kicking around here, but I'll tell you what, if they are, they're probably pretty fired up as how the summer's gone for them. And if you're thinking about getting maybe a Flames 91 jersey or a 10 Huberdeau, or your favorite player from any team around the National Hockey League, you know where to go. Royal Sports, in addition to thousands and thousands of pieces of Jets merchandise, tons of Bombers as well. They are the merchandise leaders for the National Hockey League, NBA, Major League Baseball, and tons of NFL gear coming in for the season. And with hockey just around the corner, one trip to Royal Sports can take care of everything you need for the upcoming hockey season. But with a little bit left this summer, check out the bikes, the fitness, soccer, baseball, softball, and of course, disc golf as well. It's all there, Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Check them out on Instagram as well, at Royal Sports Pembina, for the latest merchandise drops, sale information. Big tent sale coming up heading into September as well, so keep an eye out for that. And a big thanks to our friends at Boston Pizza for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Had a great pop into BP with my guy Andrew Shevchuk yesterday. We've got some really exciting things happening for NFL season, including a couple of trips to Vegas to see the Raiders. We'll get you more details about that. In the meantime, summer menus going, happy hour from 3 to 6 and 9 to 12 each and every day. And hey, if you're staying at home, weather's not too good tonight, check out their game day deals and order online at bostonpizza.com. And of course, when we talk golf on this program, we do it courtesy of our friends over at Breezy Bend, one of Manitoba's top private clubs. If you're thinking about a spot for you and your family for a long-term home here in Manitoba, talk to our friend Corey Johnson about getting on the waiting list for next year. And you can find out everything that Breezy has to offer online at breezybend.ca. And speaking of that, BMW Championships on. I can't give you much of a leaderboard update from the Manitoba Open because no one's golfing there yet. But Keegan Bradley shot a 7 under par 64 today for the first round lead. Adam Scott 6 under 65. HV3, Harold Varna the third. Shane Lowry, Xander Schauffele, all at 5 under. And Justin Thomas, he was one of my picks this week. He's at 4 under playing the 13th hole. Top Canadian right now is Corey Connors, who's 3 under par playing the 18th hole, tied for 8th with Colin Morikawa and Jordan Spieth. All right, let's welcome Weeb's World in, who is out west getting ready for the Tamarack, probably a little cheese that he didn't get a sponsor's invite along with Mark Scheifele for the Manitoba Open. What's up, Weaver? How are you?
Huss, great to be with you. Mark Scheifele's not the only one who wants to stove it up with you, so let's get her going. The hot stove at the Fowlers is officially open in Clear Lake here. Great to be with you.
Looking great, and of course Tamarack's a great tournament. I got to say hi to my buddy Tubes and the rest of the gang out there at Clear Lake for the event. And listen, we'll talk Scheifele and Jets in a minute, but let's hit the big story of the day. Nazem Kadri going to Calgary. We had all but given Pierre Dorion the undisputed off-season champions banner. But as Remis pointed out earlier today, if we want to include degree of difficulty factored into it, Brad Treleving might be at the top of the list, Ken. What do you think about 7x7 for Naz in Cowtown?
I love it, Huss. I love it for the Flames and obviously love it for Kadri. I mean, this is a super interesting story, Huss, and it has a local connection because let's not forget in 2019, both the Calgary Flames and Winnipeg Jets were interested in acquiring Nazem Kadri from the Toronto Maple Leafs when he was available via trade. Kadri saying no to both of those markets at the time. Obviously now money is a little bit better on a free agent market and he goes to Calgary. I mean, I love the move for the Flames. I've loved the offseason for Brad Treleving. He was put in an awfully difficult spot by 2 of his best players. And what has he done? He's gone out and made his team, arguably better than they were before. So I'm with you. And hey, Huss, I mean, we love wrestling on this show. How about Dorian versus Treleving in a maybe no holds barred match for the offseason title? But I mean, having watched Nazem Kadri for the Western Conference Final and the final, this is an outstanding ad for the Calgary Flames. He was a massive point producer last year, and he plays a style of game that is very rare in the National Hockey League, where he can combine the feistiness with the goal-scoring ability and ability to put up points. So, I mean, yes, the Flames lost Matthew Tkachuk, who also plays that kind of a role, but they got another guy who's, I would say equally feisty. And again, for the Battle of Alberta folks out there, how about the spice with Evander Kane and Nazem Kadri for the next stretch of time after the way that, Kane's season ended with the suspension for his hit from behind on Kadri. So, fire up that first game in the Battle of Alberta. I love the move. And hey, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. The Flames could have sat back there. Some fans were saying, the Flames should be rebuilding. Hey, when you have Jacob Markstrom between the pipes, you don't rebuild. You go for it. So the Flames are going for it. It'll be interesting now to see if they have enough money to maybe potentially sign Mackenzie Weegar to a bit of a longer-term deal. But, man, the moves that Brad Treleving has made have been absolutely dynamite, and Flames fans are obviously thrilled about it right now. Of course, we understand, Huss, there's some risk involved with 7 years for a guy who's going to be 32 years old. But, I mean, for the time being, for a team that's going all in to try to win, love these moves for the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to the challenges of these Canadian markets and everything that Calgary's just been through over the course of the past few years, knowing that the time was going to come where they were going to get some clarity as to whether these guys wanted to stick around. Obviously, I'm talking about Johnny Hockey and Matthew Tkachuk. Both of them were out. And to think that they've turned this around into Huberdeau, Mackenzie Weegar, and Kadri, but maybe most importantly, the extension to Huberdeau, who basically just took Johnny Gaudreau's money, and now Nazem Kadri. You're right. Down the road, when these guys are getting paid big money at 35 and 36, what that means for the Calgary Flames. But for a team that was so competitive and so good last year, they'll look very, very different this season. But you can make an argument on paper. I know your pal Rennie was just saying he thinks the Flames are better today than they were when they finished the regular season. So a real coup de grace for Brad Treleving under the most difficult of circumstances.
Yeah, and better for the long term, Huss, because you have two players that have committed to the marketplace at a time when essentially
Yeah,
there are
they don't
two
have to
other.
deal with this
Yes,
anymore.
right. This isn't a see you next summer and we'll have to try to band-aid and MacGyver it up there and try to put the pieces together. You got two high-end players committed for 7 seasons. I mean that's important. One was a Hart Trophy winner and one was a guy who if he hadn't gotten hurt, Huss, in the playoffs, would have been up there with Cale Makar and Nathan McKinnon when it came to the Conn Smythe Trophy. I mean, and then he came back basically with one hand and scored the overtime winner, right? So I mean, man, this guy had a huge impact on the Colorado Avalanche last year, Huss, being around their team. I mean, he's a very well-liked individual. Like I said, he plays a feisty game, but he's also incredibly skilled. He can give you top 6 minutes. And man, we talk about strength down the middle all the time. Elias Lindholm and Nazem Kadri as your 1-2 down the middle. Come on. I mean, and then you got Backlund as your checking line guy. I mean, this is a team that's incredibly deep. Teams see the opportunity in the Western Conference. Yes, the Colorado Avalanche are the gold standard, but the Pacific Division, even though the Edmonton Oilers made great strides last year, Pacific Division is wide open, and the Flames hated how last year ended after that great start in Game 1 against the Oilers. They got steamrolled after that, quite frankly. So they didn't like that. They think the West is there, to be a contender in, and they went out and made moves accordingly, and some that took some big brass ones, Huss. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. These aren't easy trades to make. We know that fans want to, the fantasy trades are always easier than the ones that are made in reality. And like you said, bringing in high-end free agent talent is challenging at times, but the Flames have gone out and done it. They didn't make any excuses. They went out and got the job done, and now we'll see if that translates into action on the ice. I expect it to.
Why do you think it took so long for Kadri to sign a deal?
That's a great question, Huss. I think this is what happened. I mean, early on in the process, I was following this closely early on. It sounded like the belief in the hockey world among reporters and maybe agents and even some of the teams was that Kadri potentially overplayed his hand, right? Given his age and everything else, people were kind of wondering if that 7-year deal would be available. A couple of weeks ago, people thought Kadri might have to take a 5-year deal with a maybe a little bit higher AAV. In the end, his agent and Kadri obviously were able to stay patient, and they knew that there was going to be a team out there. Obviously, the team that had been highest on the radar for Kadri was the New York Islanders, but that obviously didn't come to fruition. We don't know how close that got or how far away it was potentially, but Kadri stuck to his guns. He had a number in mind that he wanted, and would he have taken less in New York? I don't know. I don't think so. I think Kadri's a guy who he knows what's been said about him. We know we can't erase the suspensions and everything else, but this guy is a guy who showed incredible maturity. He went through some incredibly challenging circumstances in the playoffs before he got hurt, and all he did was rise to the occasion. And for a team in Colorado that had had nothing but disappointment in the last couple of years when everyone thought they were ready to get over the hump, he was one of their most influential players at a time when they were looking to get over the hump. So for me, he's getting paid what he's worth. And, kudos to him for doing that, because, again, we talked about this a lot when it comes to Blake Wheeler and other people. Nazem Kadri far outperformed his $4.5 million contract over the last couple of years, right? So now he's cashing in. Are there some, consequences potentially down the road? Maybe. But Kadri's a guy who, again, keeps himself in incredible shape, and he's a smart, conscientious two-way player. So even at a time, if the wheels start to go later in the contract, same with Huberdeau, because of his great fitness and skating ability, that's a guy who's still going to be able to contribute even when he's in his later or mid to late 30s.
Ken Wiebe with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Weber, I, for one, have been holding out hope that maybe the market would dictate that Paul Stastny's best course of action would be to come back to Winnipeg for maybe what would be on the table elsewhere. Now that Kadri's not going back to the Avalanche, what does this mean for Paul Stastny, if anything? And what do you make of what are you hearing about his situation? What's the latest on Paul?
Yeah, it's interesting, Huss. I mean, we knew that Paul, speaking of patience, Paul made it quite clear early on that he was leaving all doors open, but he wasn't going to be a guy that was going to sign in early July when free agency opened. He's a guy who was going to basically pick his spot. He's going to go to a contender that he believes can win the Stanley Cup. And to me, Colorado makes a whole lot of sense. We've talked about it for several years, Huss. Even before he recommitted to Winnipeg last year, I thought Colorado might be a landing spot for him. I still feel that way. I mean, some folks in the game say, Stastny, he doesn't exactly play the high-speed style the Avalanche like to play, but because of the old word processor that he uses between the ears, I think he can still be an effective player in Jared Bednar's system. I think it makes a whole lot of sense for him. He has obvious ties to the Colorado area, having played college hockey there, having lived there, having played for the Avalanche. I think it's a natural fit for him. And I think now the price tag has probably gone down a little bit with Kadri not coming back. I think the Avalanche have some clarity in terms of how they're going to fill out the roster. I do think that I see a very good opportunity for Paul to potentially end up back there. I thought about Florida earlier too. Obviously, we know how much Paul Maurice appreciates Paul Stastny, but I think with the Eric Stahl situation there, I don't necessarily see them having two guys in their mid to late 30s on the same team. I'm not ruling it out entirely, but I think the most logical landing spot for Stastny would be the Colorado Avalanche right now.
Eric Stahl's on a PTO, if I'm not mistaken. Is he not?
Right, sure.
Ken, with Florida?
Yes, he is. Yeah.
So it would be there.
Yeah, just I guess we know how Paul has talked about him, though, right? I mean, he was revered when he was still in the league. We've heard how Maurice is like. You don't bring that guy in unless you think there's like this is to me is like a Jack Johnson PTO. I think there is a deal in the drawer. Same almost when Svechnikov signed a Moose contract last year initially. There was, as long as you're healthy, there's a deal to be had. As long as you have the motivation, you show up in shape, you're going to be on the team.
So basically, if you're a Jets fan holding out hope that Paul Stastny might be back, might be best to just move on and focus on other holes in the lineup and other potential solutions.
I would say, I mean, again, the door is not closed, but I would say it would be more likely the Jets would be looking at, if they're looking to add a centerman, I would say Evan Rodriguez must be at the top of that list. Huss, for me, a guy who can play center or a wing, a guy that can give you some flexibility in the lineup. You can play him up and down. I mean, he had the great first half last year. I mean, he scored the majority of his goals in the first 45 games, while the Penguins were dealing with injuries to Crosby and Malkin at times. So to me, he's still a guy that, I mean, this is still a quality player. I mean, he almost had 20 goals last year, I think. So, I mean, this is a guy who has versatility. Also, too, on a team that does not have a lot of right shot players, Huss, to me, Rodriguez is a natural fit. Yes, we've talked about Sonny Milano and some of the other guys out there, but I think, too, with the uncertainty about Pierre-Luc Dubois in 2 seasons' time and with Mark Scheifele's deal expiring in 2 years, I think Rodriguez would be a nice kind of backfill type of player that can also give you top 6 minutes when you need them. He's more of a middle 6 guy, but a very versatile player. And I think he'd be a guy that is definitely still on the Jets' radar. To me, too, he just seems like one of those guys who's being very patient. We talked about it before, Huss. I mean, the middle class, I wouldn't say it's gotten squeezed, but it's certainly less than what we thought for a lot of these players. So I could see Rodriguez being a really good fit for the Winnipeg Jets. But again, I don't know how their scouts feel about him. But I would imagine he's a guy that would still be attracting a lot of interest for that second tier of the marketplace. But that's where you can put your team over the top, right? Every team has a strong top 6 for the majority of time. So if you can get Rodriguez, maybe he's on your third line, stretches your depth, and then you can move him up and down the lineup depending on how things are going, especially for a team like the Jets who are counting on Cole Perfetti to be a top 6 player based on how the roster looks today.
Yeah, no, it is a good point. There's plenty of still questions that remain about the Winnipeg Jets lineup. And, you said, I'm not necessarily saying that there's a squeeze in the middle class. I'll say it. I think the middle class is squeezed. The lower class is absolutely squeezed. I mean, essentially, if you want to play, you're probably looking at a deal that is not 7 figures. And with Nazem Kadri, considering what he probably, I mean, Evolving Hockey, remember when I got a sub to that and we've been sort of following the predictions and they've been right on for most. They were thinking Nazem Kadri was getting in the 8.5 range. So, I mean, I think there's something to be said for that. All that being said, it brings us to the Jets situation right now. And I know you've sort of just laid out the case for Evan Rodriguez here. The further we get, especially closer to training camp, with this logjam of defense on the Jets, Ken, I can't help but think that maybe the logical solution to this is for Kevin Cheveldayoff to use some of his limited cap space remaining to trade one of the defensemen any of them that, might get some sort of value back and take a player that is making more money than the defenseman was to add to the forward group, alleviating a little bit of cap space for another team. I mean, to me, Kevin Cheveldayoff has some assets, but maybe the biggest asset when it comes to changing this roster with 10 teams needing to get under the cap is that remaining space that the Winnipeg Jets have now that the RFAs are signed.
Yeah, bang on, Huston. I've been listening to you during the course of the week and the last few weeks. I mean, we've discussed this a little bit, but yeah, I mean, right now, so it's interesting. I mean, the Jets are positioned to take on a salary. I don't think they necessarily want to take on a bad salary, but they have the ability. And again, you mentioned Sean before. Sean and I were talking about this yesterday during the Rogers Golf Tournament. I mean, look at what the Jets have done in the past. Look at their acquisitions. They picked up Paul Stastny. They retained Paul Stastny back from the Vegas Golden Knights when they were strapped for cap space. They went out and got Nate Schmidt from the Vancouver Canucks, who were looking to lighten the load when it comes to the cap situation. And Brendan Dillon from the Washington Capitals, after Alex Ovechkin signed his deal, they needed to shed some salary. So, I mean, if we're looking historically at what Kevin Cheveldayoff has done, he has found players that teams can't currently afford on their team and brought them to Winnipeg. And again, I saw also, I mean, the Jets never wanted to lose Paul Stastny to begin with, so to me, that's a little bit of a different situation. They were probably going to be comfortable paying him that money had he not left Winnipeg for Vegas in the first place. But that doesn't mean that they wouldn't look at doing that again. I mean, they definitely have the ability to do so. But the other thing for me, Huss, I mean, cap space is still going to be an essential quality, even though we expect that, 1 or 2 or 3 years down the road, the numbers will be going up. But you have to be careful with the term you're bringing back if you're bringing in a player like that. So I do think it is something, cap space as a weapon. I'm with you. I'm buying that. I'm buying that Hustler stock right now. But I also think the Jets may use that to help themselves in the short term, but also leave them with the flexibility to maintain that cap space, especially, we've talked a lot about Blake Wheeler this summer, and knowing that next year would be the last year at 8.25. I mean, his salary this year is less than his cap hit, but next year it's back to full pop. So I do think there is some flexibility there. And I'm with you. If you're looking to add another top 6 piece, moving out someone like Brendan Dillon or Dylan DeMello or one of those guys who makes more money than Dylan Samberg or Ville Heinola will makes a whole lot of sense to me, especially when you consider the season that Declan Chisholm had. There's a little bit more backfill than you maybe anticipated. And then when you look at Elias Solomonson and the kind of projection that he has, even though he's going to be playing in Sweden this year once again, a couple years down the road, he could be back in the system, and who knows how long it takes for him to get up there. But he's a highly touted prospect on the right side, which is something they don't have a ton of. And again, the guy who sort of seems to get left out of the equation a lot, Huss, when we talk about this in the summertime, I mean, Johnny Kovacevic had a great year, right? This is a guy who, yes, he's on a 2-way for the first year. I don't anticipate Johnny Kovacevic being exposed to waivers because I think that teams would look at his mobility and size. He's one of those late bloomers. He's a guy that would get claimed. Teams are looking for defenseman depth all the time. So I don't
especially
see him
cheap
being
ones.
Exposed. Exactly. So to me,
he was making $3 million bucks.
Is also on the team. Right, but he's on the team. So if he's on the team and we expect Heinola and Samberg to be on the team, well, there's too many chairs there's too many people and not enough chairs on the musical chairs game. So we've talked about this for weeks, and I'm with you. I'm surprised it's taken this long, but I will be shocked if all of those veterans that we have spoken about are on the opening day roster. I mean, I just don't see that. All teams are looking to upgrade their defense core. I mean, look at Ottawa. You've talked about how great their offseason's been, and it's been great. They're still looking at Jacob Chychrun, Huss. And they have Jake Sanderson, who's one of the best defense prospects in the NHL. So if Ottawa is looking for defense, you can be sure that about 29 or 30 other teams are looking for capable defensemen. But when they look at the pie chart, they're not sure how they're going to fit 3 mil or 3.9 or whatever the other number is. But the crazy part of the equation is that there's still teams that need to get to the floor, Huss. So maybe one of those teams, maybe there's a deal, whether it's a 3-way deal or a head-to-head deal straight up. I still think the Jets are going to be moving one of those veteran defensemen. And when that time comes, I'm not sure, but we always know this too, Huss. In training camp, somebody always gets hurt or shows up to camp, something strange happens, there's a freak injury, and now suddenly one of those teams that was looking at Brendan Dillon at 3.9 are going to put somebody on LTIR and have the room to add him to the equation. Now, what they want to give up, now that could be something different, but we're still in the strange place where some teams aren't sure how competitive they're going to be. Is the door wide open? Should they rebuild? I mean, it's a very fluid situation on a lot of those fronts, but I still do anticipate the Jets moving at least one of those veteran guys because, like I said, unless you're exposing the big ticket item to waivers to potentially have them sent down a la Andre Pavlik, I don't see them running the risk with some of their young players. And that's another thing. We talked about David Gustafson last week, Huss. The one thing I didn't mention, people were saying, oh, well, he has a two-way the first year. Who cares? The Jets are not exposing David Gustafson to waivers. I mean, that's the kind of player that gets snapped up in a heartbeat by a team that needs center depth. So Gustafson's on the team. We expect some of these other guys to be on the team.
Yeah, never mind even thinking about exposing David Gustafson to waivers. The way the team's made right now, we could have starting an opening day roster with 12 forwards and 9 defensemen. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I mean, there's not a lot out there. But listen, moving on, you mentioned Blake Wheeler. You hearing anything on that? Is it sort of status quo on that? As we get closer to the beginning of training camp, is it more and more likely that Blake Wheeler will be back as a member of the Jets this season?
Yeah, I think so, Huss. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's one of those things that, you know, over the course of time, things can change. I mean, at one point, it seemed like it was like 90% chance both sides are ready to move on. But I think after Blake Wheeler spoke with Rick Bowness, I'm guessing that things, you know, I bet Rick Bowness probably is one of the coaches that looked at Blake Wheeler from afar and said, that's a player I would like to coach. This is a guy with an incredibly high effort level. He's been an incredibly productive player. And, you know, he's been in a leadership position for a lot of years. So I'm guessing that Rick Bowness and Blake Wheeler had some pretty honest and candid conversations. And to me, the fact that Blake Wheeler is still a member of the Jets it doesn't mean for surely that nothing is going to happen, but I anticipate Wheeler to be part of the team next year. And I expect him to come back excited. I mean, Blake Wheeler is a guy who does soul searching during the offseason. We know he came back after 2019 and sort of, you know, shed a different light about how he wanted to change his leadership style a little bit more. So to me, I could easily see a scenario where Wheeler comes back and plays an important role for the Jets. Having said that, like we've talked about before, that role has to include maybe more of a complementary role. And that doesn't mean going down to 15 minutes per game, but Blake Wheeler being a solid 1B or second line right winger would be a good role for him and for the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, we know he has chemistry with Pierre-Luc Dubois. I expect those two to start the year together if Wheeler is on the team, in which right now it looks like he's going to be. So I think much in the maybe what we saw from, I know you've talked about it with everybody else, but I mean, like Mark Scheifele's demeanor changed. It did a complete 180. And sometimes the benefit of time and being able to get away, that helps you feel better about things. I mean, it doesn't help you feel better about how it ended, but guys are at the optimistic time, right, Huss? I mean, people will come to training camp feeling good about things. And I think much like Mark Scheifele did in his expressions with us or at the Manitoba Open presser, I think Blake Wheeler shows up at training camp if he's still here, and I expect him to be here, as I mentioned. I expect him. I mean, is it going to be a sunny disposition? That I can't guarantee, but I think it'll be a lot sunnier than the guy who said it feels we're back to square one on the last day of the season. And again, Huss, we ask players to be truthful all the time. So that's good. Let them be truthful. But then if we don't like the answers, often you see people saying, well, I didn't like what you said.
But here's the thing, though. We know what the answers are, and nothing's really has changed. Is it I mean, I just have to ask. I mean, can we really expect that just everyone's going to go their separate ways and things are going to come back and like all of last season is completely erased? I mean, how much of a miracle worker do we expect Rick Bowness to be?
Huss, I mean, we've talked about this before. When things don't go well, obviously it's tense. There's tension. People say things to each other in the room. Sometimes people get offended by those things again. And I have not been in the dressing room since COVID. So I don't pretend to have the same kind of heartbeat or pulse as you would in a normal situation when you can talk to players on a daily basis. when you can observe and see how players interact. But to me, having played on a lot of teams, Huss, when things aren't going well, you don't want people to be happy about it. Now, in terms of how people act and what things are said, those things happen behind closed doors, and people have differing opinions about them. I would tell you this: if the Jets get off to a 2-8 start next year, yeah, sure, then there could be some remnants from last year. But if the Jets start 7-3, I don't think we're talking about whatever dressing room issues or whatever's happening. I mean,
well, here's the thing: they started 9-3-3 last year. It was their best start ever, and then things went into the tank. I mean, I just listen. I would love to sit here because I know the talent on this team. I would love to be able to say, man, you know what? This team really does have what it takes to just completely move on past last year. I'm just not sure that it does. And I think that it's a hell of a lot to ask of a new head coach to come in and literally be the difference that takes a team that was incredibly disappointing to a team that reaches its full potential. I'd love to be wrong. I just have a hard time selling that to people listening to this show.
Sure, Huss. But to me, here's the other part of the equation. Like, if we look at the roster for 2018 and 2019, first 3 quarters of the year before Buffett and Morrissey got hurt, the core pieces are the same. I mean, the core pieces got along just fine in 2018 and for the majority of 2019. So to think that they couldn't get to a situation where guys get along, what helps guys get along? Winning hockey games, right? So yeah, I'm with you, Huss. It's so easy, and people forget the Jets had the great start last year. Sure, it was a bit of a softer schedule, but things went into serious disarray, Paul Maurice resigning and everything else. So, I mean, do they have some obstacles to overcome? Absolutely. But the only thing that is going to matter is what happens. People are going to show up with a good attitude in September. They're going to probably have to do some team bonding things of that nature, but every team does that, right? I mean, I don't think the Calgary Flames got along great prior to in the Canadian division when they missed the playoffs. But outside of Mark Giordano leaving, it was the same leadership group that they had coming back the year after, and things coexisted just fine there. So, I mean, do
you think that'll be the case if everyone's back? Is the leadership group the same? Is Wheeler the captain? Is Mark Scheifele and Josh Morrissey the guys with the ace?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I don't know how Rick Bowness views it, but I've said this before and I'll say it again. To me, the only way Blake Wheeler is not the captain of the Winnipeg Jets is if Blake Wheeler doesn't want to be the captain of the Winnipeg Jets. And some people might not like that answer. But, I mean, to me, he's been the face of the franchise for 11 seasons, and he's been through the ups and downs. And, you don't have to like his leadership style, or you don't have to like the way he deals with the media. And Huss, to be honest, some fans like it when Blake is snarky with the media. And often when Blake is being snarky,
don't get me wrong,
he sometimes gives his best answers when he's not in a good mood. So, I mean, unless he feels the weight of the responsibility is too much to bear, and I don't think that he does, I expect Blake Wheeler to be the captain of the Jets. Could they modify the A's or add one more person? I mean, now that the situation has changed on the coaching staff,
let me ask you this:
I could easily see Adam Lowry being one of the alternates, Huss, right? I mean, Adam Lowry's part of the leadership group.
Well, no, absolutely. I mean, I guess you mentioned him. You're right. He has sort of been the face of the franchise for this last number of years, and we know what's happened with the team. With all the challenges that the Winnipeg Jets have right now in this market, getting fans back on board, engaging people, does it make sense for Blake Wheeler, after apparently having one foot out the door all summer, to come back in the same position as essentially the leader in the face of the franchise, to use your term?
Yeah, so we talked about this a lot. Because we don't know the full story, I'm not making any assumptions about Blake Wheeler having his one foot out the door, because I don't know if that's the case. It sounded like the teams, leaks obviously happened, probably from both sides, but Blake hasn't come out and said he's disappointed. And the one thing that has been consistent with Blake since he arrived here, we know because he talked about it when he was, celebrated for his 1,000th game. This is where Blake Wheeler felt comfortable. The Jets allowed him to become the person and the individual that he is. So he went out of his way. He's built a house here. His family loves it here. He chose to make Winnipeg their home. So I think it's a mistake to suggest Blake Wheeler somehow did a 180 and said, I'm out of here. I'm tired of Winnipeg. I don't think that's the case. I mean, did he at one point express some frustration with how things have ended? I mean, of course. And let's not forget, I mean, the backdrop that people also forget, and some people don't care about this, Huss, but let's not forget, in 2010 or in the trade deadline in 2011, Blake Wheeler was on the team that won the Stanley Cup but was traded to the Atlanta Thrashers. So this is a guy who, never mind 2018 when he made the conference final and his team won 9 games. The team that he grew up in the NHL with won the Stanley Cup without him. So that's something that is always kind of stuck in the craw of Blake Wheeler. I think there's nothing Blake would like more than to win a championship with the Winnipeg Jets. And I think he'd love to do it as the captain and be the guy that raises the trophy first and then hands it to whoever's beside him, whether that's Mark Scheifele or whoever else. But again, Blake is a very emotional person, but he keeps a lot of those emotions to himself at times. I mean, I expect Blake to come out and have a great season. I mean, he had a very strong season last year in a lot of regards in terms of his offense. I mean, we know the underlying numbers weren't great and they had to switch the lines up. And at the end of the year, Blake played his best hockey playing with Pierre-Luc Dubois. So to me, Blake Wheeler can be a very effective top 6 player. Yeah, I get it. Some people say, oh, well, play Blake on the third line. Well, if the Jets had someone to play ahead of him, by all means. But right now, Blake Wheeler at 35 years old is still ready to be a contributor to this hockey team. I mean, in terms of what happens behind closed doors, Huss, and what kind of things need to be said or what fences need to be mended, that I can't tell you. But what I can tell you is that if Blake Wheeler is a Winnipeg Jet, he is going to exert 100% maximum effort, and he's going to do his part to be a good leader. Whether that means he needs to change that leadership style to a degree because you got a bunch of young, sunny disposition guys when he's a little bit ultra serious, that's on Blake. But to me, this is a guy that's been around a long time, Huss, and this is a guy that wants to win. So to me, I think he has the ability to adapt. And hey, I get it. You talked a lot about Scheifele and PR earlier this week, but having been in that conversation, and Huss, I also spoke with him a little bit beforehand and a little bit afterward, mostly about golf. But this is a guy whose perspective has changed with the benefit of being 4 months removed from May 1st when things weren't great in his life. His season ended with a terrible injury. He was in a sour mood. His team, which was supposed to be great, underperformed. Mark was supposed to be a 100-point guy last year. He didn't get that mark. It was terrible personally and professionally and for the team. So now a guy's had a summer of recharging and refreshing. And I mean, you talked about it with Mike. Mark is jacked, man. I mean, he's always been a fitness guy. To me, he looks stronger than he ever has been before. But to me, I didn't see it as a PR move. I agree that there was a lot of things that needed to be smoothed over. But Huss, to me, having been in that conversation, Mark's not a very good BSer, is what I would say. So I felt that was more of a genuine feeling. And again, let's not forget, it's not long ago that Mark was the aw shucks guy who liked talking about hockey. And to me, the more that guy's around, the better chance he has at having success. Because when he's under the dark cloud, that's not good for him because it means it's not going well for him or the team. But I mean, again, the proof will be in the pudding, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no doubt. I know we got to close up the buffet because you've got a tea time coming up. But we heard it from Scheifele himself. That was the media. You look yourself in the mirror. You caused all of that, Ken. The media was a media concoction. Anyways, we had a good laugh about that. Before we go, we got to give a shout out to TSN post-game Hall of Fame caller Marshall Paterson, who has put a blade into your bag. I don't know, folks, if you can see this. Get this right up there. Wake up, stamped right on the blades. I know you wanted to give a public thanks to Marsh for that incredible gift to just what you need. Another thing to butter knife a wedge. Those look sweet though.
Yeah, amazing. Marshall Paterson was kind enough to send the wedges with his wife Elena, and picked them up this morning. Can't wait to put them to use with our pal Mark Chuby coming up with the tea time at the top of the hour. Great appreciation. Team Titleist. They look absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait to see if they can help me shave a few strokes off the game. Playing in my first Tamarack. I'm feeling like a rookie again, Huss. Very exciting times, and can't wait to get out there. I've heard all about how great an event it is. I played in the Grail before, first Tamarack, and we know there's some great action going on at the Manitoba Open as well. But great time of the year for the golf world. And yeah, Marshall Paterson, just a great supporter of all our shows and a great friend. And we're very appreciative of what he's been able to deliver here.
Well, I'll tell you what, you were snubbed for the sponsors invite to the Manitoba Open, but I have no doubt that we'll be talking about an incredible performance at the Tamarack next week when you join us. Hit him straight, say hi to Tubes, and get ready for some laughs with this round today.
Have a great weekend, and thanks for having me as always, Huss. We'll be looking forward to chopping it up next week, where I think I will be finally back home for the first time in a month here for my normal hit, so it should be good.
Good. Well, Remis is gone for a couple weeks. So if you want to jump on with me one of the days off the top and just hit all the topics of the day, I'll hit you up. You're more than welcome. Always love having you on the program. Take it easy, dude.
See you, bud. Thanks for having me.
Right.
Cheers.
Right on. There's Ken Wiebe at Weeb's World on Twitter. Make sure to follow him. By the way, folks, great crew here on the YouTube channel. If you're new and if you haven't already, make sure you hit that red subscribe button and join us daily, 1 p.m. here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Great thing about subscribing, certainly it helps us grow the channel. But if you do miss the live show, when you go to YouTube, fresh, the latest Winnipeg Sports Talk content there for you at your pleasure. And of course, subscribe on your favorite podcast feed so you get the audio so you can listen to the car wherever else you are. Just search Winnipeg Sports Talk and hit the subscribe button. All right, Andy Mack coming up. Lots of NFL news to talk about. Before we do that, big thanks to Knott Auto Corp for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. If you're thinking about getting a new vehicle, before you do anything, head on down to Knott and talk to the experts on what you're hoping to get, what they have on the lot. And if there's something that you've got your heart set on, they'll find it, get it here to Winnipeg at the best possible price. Why not get in to the car of your dreams at a great price with the help of the Knott team? Visit them in person at the showroom at Waverly and McGillivray, or check them out online at knott.ca. Hey, first things first, big thanks to all of the folks that were with us yesterday that jumped on our little early link for our event over at Little Brown Jug. Sports trivia hosted by yours truly. I'm really looking forward to do this. I was the trivia host for so many years down at the E&C, and that was Pub Stumpers doing all sorts of things, but we're curating our own sports trivia night with our friends at Little Brown Jug. Very limited seating for this event, and a number of you jumped on tickets yesterday. So if you haven't already, we'll get that link in the description. We'll be sticking it up on, and of course, we also, to everyone that signed up for the newsletter, we also sent one out. Essentially, the tickets, basically, you're buying your first beer. It reserves your seat there, and we've got a capacity probably in and around 70 for this event. And I know just from yesterday, talking about it on the show and putting that link, we're well over 20 before Little Brown Jugs even put it out. So would love to see you there. It'll be a great Winnipeg Sports Talk get-together at one of our favorite places, Little Brown Jug. Get on that. Get your tickets. Join us there for it. And, of course, Little Brown Jug down on William Avenue, the best spot to get some of Winnipeg's finest local beers. We had a few 1919s at the game last night. We'll touch on that after we talk to Andy McNamara. And hey, a big thanks to Nick and Nikki DQ and their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. 4 locations in Winnipeg and Southern Manitoba: DQ Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. Well, it's sort of rainy right now, but it's always a great day for a blizzard. Amazing new summer blizzard flavors available. And check out those new stack burgers as well if you haven't already. And hey, if you've got an event coming up where you need a DQ ice cream cake for it, everything goes better with the DQ ice cream cake. DQ Manitoba on Instagram. If you want to connect with them, let them know what you want for a custom cake. They'll get it done for you, and you can pick it up at any of the 4 Nick and Nikki D. All right. Really looking forward to bringing my good friend Andy McNamara back on the program, because there's lots going on in NFL training camps as the preseason continues. And Andy's Browns get some clarity on their new franchise quarterback and how long he's going to be out. Andy Mack, what's going on, man?
Hey, brother. Good, Huss. Good. But yeah, that DQ stuff's making me hungry, man. I love the new, it's the cookie dough with the Reese's Pieces bits. That's
the
right
Reese's
here,
Pieces cookie dough blizzard.
So good.
It's number 1 on my power poll. There's
really
listen,
so good.
I'm
with you.
100%. I mean, there's a bunch of favorites going on, but I think I had that one. We were heading out to Dauphin, I think around Canada Day, and I've almost been exclusive on the Reese's Pieces cookie dough blizzard since then. So endorsed by both of us. Try it some point soon. Hey, listen, before we talk about Deshaun Watson and everything going on with the Browns and around the NFL, of course, you doing your great work with UFF Sports. We've talked about that before. Exciting season coming up it is fantasy season right now. Dusty and I just cranked out the fantasy football extravaganza on the Lock Shop. We'll do more of that coming up. But you were just at a massive fantasy football convention. What? Tell us about this. I'm very intrigued as to what was going on and what you came back with.
Man, well, first of all, Huss, next year you got to come down to this, brother. It's really, really cool. It was, you know, what really stood out to me is in Canton, Ohio. So any excuse to get to Ohio, I'm down. Drove down. What stood out to me was like the positivity and just collaboration of all these different fantasy groups, from fantasy footballers to companies that you never even really heard of, but they're great people, and the amount of relationships and just back and forth of like, wow, you do this part in fantasy, you do IDP, well, we're doing a 53-man, 32-team roster in UFF Sports. Maybe we can have something. Then there's a fantasy betting side that comes along with it as well, and it was just massive. So I got to give you a couple highlights, okay? So first of all, we were at there was a cornhole tournament, Centennial Plaza, which just had a big on the preseason game was on the big screen. And I've never played cornhole before, Huss. Okay, so I didn't know the rules or nothing. So I threw it. Our team went up 13-0, and I thought, I'm the best cornhole player who ever lived, clearly, and we blew it. 21-17. I was the Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl of cornhole. We blew it. It was a choke job. And then we did flag football at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the field where the guys were playing the exhibition game. It was amazing. We were eliminated quite quickly, our team, very fast, but I didn't pull any muscle. So, it was a success.
Well, good stuff. Listen, I'm so geeked for fantasy season. I'm already trying to plug in the different draft dates. We're all making it happen over the next few weeks. But let's talk about what's happening in the National Football League right now, because we'll have some regular fantasy focused conversations throughout the season. Clarity for your Cleveland Browns. Hey, just before we talk about this, I mean, listen, I know you've been a lifelong Browns fan, and the Browns fans are as loyal as anyone. How has this entire Deshaun Watson saga gone over with the Browns? I mean, you've been looking for this franchise quarterback for so long, but man, this guy comes with the amount, I mean, almost an unparalleled amount of baggage for an NFL player, and now he's not even going to be available to the team until week 13.
Yeah, for 11 games. And honestly, Huss, it kind of feels like the Browns sold their soul, right? You've been in quarterback hell for the most part since 1999. Now, Baker looked like he could have been the guy. I personally think if you ran it back with a healthy Baker, you could go quite a ways. However, the tipping point to me last year was that Kansas City Chiefs Buffalo Bills game, where I saw Mahomes and Allen, that classic that went back and forth. And Huss, you know what? I watched that, and in my heart of hearts, I was like, Baker can't win that. Deshaun Watson can win that game. But again, it feels like you sort of sold your soul as a fan, because it's like, look, you cheer for the name on the jersey and the city, right? That's what you cheer for. Players come and go. So I want the team to do well. But at the same point, you have Watson, and then it's like he apologized today, but then he's also like, but I did nothing wrong. It's like, dude, just shut up. Go away to November and come back and hope you're good at football and things will go on. The NFL, through its history, is littered with monsters of human beings, right? Monstrous people. So this isn't unique in that sense, but the baggage that's come along, it is really, for Browns fans, hindered any sort of celebration or outward excitement. You almost feel like hidden, like, well, I hope he's good, but it can't seem like I'm too excited. It's very confusing.
Yeah. Where does this leave the Browns going into this season? I mean, are we basically talking about a lost year? And the fact of the matter is, you might be able to stomach it if you were going in and getting a great pick. Well, I mean, all their picks are gone to the Houston Texans for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, next three first-round picks. And like the movie Draft Day, for anyone who watches, there's no Kevin Costner, there's no Sonny Weaver Jr. to get those 3 first-round picks back, plus David Putney. Putney's not coming in neither of the picks, Huss. They're not coming. So that's the other thing. If you lose, it doesn't help you. So you're really in a point where you're missing the draft picks, but you're also missing potentially a year of Myles Garrett in his prime, Nick Chubb in his prime, whole bunch of other players. So you're hinging your hope on Jacoby Brissett, career journeyman backup. Is he one of the higher end backups in the league? Yes. If it was the 6 games, could I stomach it? Yeah. 11. Like, really, what are we hoping for? When I'm looking at it, you're probably at 5 and 6, which would be right around where Jacoby Brissett is. He's an under 500 starter in the National Football League. So, okay, what does that mean? Well, Deshaun Watson comes back, and everyone's thinking, okay, he's back. Well, this guy played one game, and it was the preseason for 5 series in 2 years. And so he's not going to fly in and start balling out. He's going to have to shake it off, and it might not even be fully shooken off by the end of this season. So really, you're going to have to be relying on all the surrounding pieces. The surrounding pieces are there, and that's why they went out and got Deshaun Watson, because they thought, well, we need an elite quarterback. We plop that in there, we're Super Bowl contenders, and that's a fact. But you're not getting an elite quarterback right now. You're not going to get him at his best even when he returns, and you also then have to hope Jacoby Brissett's healthy, because then you got Josh Dobbs and Josh Rosen behind him. It's not good.
Josh Rosen's just been waiting for another chance. He's just been bouncing
terrible.
around team after team.
Dude,
he's been in a tough situation in many spots, but he's had so many chances with a bunch of different teams. And I guess we'll just say if Josh Rosen's ever taken snaps for the Browns, that'll tell you all you need to know about how this season has gone for Cleveland. Going into the season, knowing that Deshaun Watson's out until week 13, what's your preseason AFC North power poll? Who's the team to beat? Is it the Bengals or is it the Baltimore Ravens? Because I don't think anyone could make the case that right now it's the Steelers with their quarterback situation.
No, definitely not the Steelers. I put the Bengals at the top. I do. They improve. What were we saying all last year on the show, Huss? Boy, if the Bengals would have just addressed that offensive line, keep Joe Burrow a little safer, create more holes for Joe Mixon. Well, they did it. Pains me to say, but they did it. So now you're getting Joe Burrow. And remember last year, Joe Burrow was coming off of that major knee injury. Went to the Super Bowl. Well, now he's a full year back from that. You have Jamar Chase in year 2, who's an absolute stud. T. Higgins, who, by the way, fantasy-wise, that's the guy you want to target. Jamar Chase is going to go high. Do not sleep on T. Higgins. I have both him and Chase and Higgins as top 12 finishers in my wide receiver fantasy power rankings PPR. So you have that. You have Joe Mixon in a pass-heavy offense with an improved offensive line, and you can still run with the ball behind that improved offensive line. So I think the Bengals are the team to beat. They've done enough to stay good on defense. The Ravens are just going to try to ground and pound you on the offensive side, and then the defense got a bit better, but not significant. So I feel Lamar Jackson's going to take a step back. Again, another step back, decline from a year before. People, he got injured. That's part of it. So he runs too much. They have like 4 running backs there. Really, Huss? If we talk fantasy as well with this AFC North, I want nothing to do with the Ravens outside of Lamar Jackson as a back end QB1. I have him at 11. I think that's where he's finishing. I don't want any other piece of that team except for Mark Andrews because he funnels the ball to him. Anybody else? No thanks. It's all committee. So I think it goes Bengals. I hope the Browns second, but if Jacoby has a career year, I suppose, but likely Ravens, then Browns, then Steelers.
Andy, give me an unbiased view on the AFC West. I've been joking that this division is so stacked. The NFL should have a special pay-per-view package just for the AFC West games, and then there's the rest of the league. You know where my allegiances lie.
Yes.
But I think it's pretty safe to say that the Chargers are a very, very deadly team, and both the Broncos and the Raiders have made significant improvements, and the Chiefs look different, although different people have different opinions on it. I mean, give us your rankings of that AFC West. Who are you high on, and who are you maybe not so high on?
First of all, I'm with you. That is pay-per-view television anytime these teams match up. I want to see with this year, do they cannibalize each other? Like, what does the win totals look like for these teams who are really going to be in head-to-head battles? Now, if I'm just looking at it straight away, I'm thinking the Chargers. However, we haven't seen the Chargers yet, and Justin Herbert, still young player, being able to get it done. Lots of flash, lots of show, lots of stats, but they should have made the playoffs last year. They choked. Does that improve this year? Maybe. They have the talent, but does it improve? Now, the Raiders, you get Devontae Adams, stud. Upgrades Derek Carr, downgrades Devontae Adams, if we're looking at fantasy. But you're going to get a lot of targets, of course, for Devontae Adams. And Russell Wilson with the Broncos looks like, because the question I got asked a lot, Huss, is Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, with Tim Patrick out. It looks like Cortland Sutton is his guy. He's going to him. Not that Judy's not going to get touches, but he's going to be the guy. And you still have that defense. And then you look at your Chiefs. As you said, different. But what do you need in this league? You need a franchise quarterback. Last time I checked, There's not too many better than Patrick Mahomes. Now, what I'm interested to see in at 33 years old, Travis Kelce, who it looked like last year we may have seen the tip of the mountain start to come down on that other side a little bit. What does this offense look like? Juju Smith-Schuster in Pittsburgh was tremendous as a number 2. When given the chance as a number 1, he choked it away. He has another chance to do that now. McCole Hardman was banged up. Okay, where are we looking at from this wide receiver core? What are we looking at with this committee at running back as well? Because I don't think this is Clyde Edwards-Helaire's backfield alone, not by a long shot. You're going to see a lot of different looks here. Is Travis Kelce being just pump the ball a la Rodgers to Devontae Adams? So if I'm looking at rankings here, Huss, I'm going to say Chargers. See, this is so tough because you can have any one of these teams first. Like, it's to say one team is last. It's like they're still not a bad team, right? So I'll say Chargers, Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders. But like, could you see a world? Let me ask you something. Could you see a world where all 4 teams in the AFC West make it? Like that sounds kind of crazy, but not that crazy.
I mean, it would mean that they would really need to dominate their out-of-division schedules because, just by definition, when you've got 6 games in the division, teams are going to win and teams are going to lose. But certainly on paper, talent-wise, I think you're talking about 4, potentially the top 10 teams in the league all playing in the same division. I'm not sure we've ever been able to say on that. Let's get back to fantasy for a minute because you mentioned your ratings and where you had Lamar, and 11 is almost a shockingly low rating just because of how much he runs the game. Who's at the top of your list? I mean, Dusty and I were, Nielsen's quite high on Lamar Jackson. Josh Allen seems to be the consensus number 1. Is that the case for you? And I mean, who's that top tier of quarterbacks at the fantasy draft that you would, really try to look at if they were available, and if not, maybe wait?
So to me, I tried to, because the popular pick is Josh Allen. And Huss, I tried working my way around. How can I not have it Josh Allen? And I couldn't. I couldn't not have it Josh Allen. It has to be Josh Allen. We know why. Cannon arm. He can also run, and he's got enough weapons. I think Gabe Davis takes a nice big step forward this year. That's going to be a nice little pick. You have Dawson Knox as well. Good enough running backs around him. Everything's in place. Now, where it gets interesting for me is who's after Josh Allen. So I'll give you my top 5 to start. I got Josh Allen. I have Justin Herbert of the Chargers. Again, kind of a Josh Allen-like guy, right? Big dude, can move, has a big arm, lots of weapons. Then I have Joe Burrow at number 3. You have to look at the offense, people, when it comes to fantasy. Are you run first? Are you a mix? Are you pass heavy? Zach Taylor and the Bengals throw to a fault. That automatically makes, with the weapons around him, Joe Burrow a stud. So I have him at number 3. I got your Patrick Mahomes at 4, mainly because the removal of Tyreek Hill, we have to face it. That's significant. That's a significant removal. So I have him at 4. Number 5, I got damn Tom Brady, Huss. Damn it. I can't. How are we going to bet against him? One day it's not going to work. But until it doesn't work, the dude threw for 5,000 yards. He threw for 5,000 yards and he's 43 years old. Now, we know with pass-only quarterbacks like Tom Brady, like Matt Stafford, if they're not throwing 3 touchdowns, no picks, 300 yards, you're not having a good fantasy day. Whereas those other guys, like a Jalen Hurts, who I have at 6, are able to adjust with that. But Tom Brady, with the pieces around him, he wants one more go at it, Huss, and who am I to doubt him?
You know what? Let me hit you with this. And folks, that if you missed Nielsen and I cranking out for the Lock Shop, the fantasy football extravaganza on Tuesday, we'll have another episode doing running backs next week. And again, consider the source, but I'm going to make the case why Patrick Mahomes this year might be even more deadly than he's been in the past. I mean, I don't need to recite the resume of Patrick Mahomes. Everyone knows who he is. But you're right. Things are different this year without Tyreek Hill. Here's a couple of things. First of all, you saw in that first preseason game, he goes 6 of 7, completes passes to 6 different receivers. And don't think that Mahomes hasn't heard some of the doubts about where he's at. Not to mention the ridiculous things that Tyreek Hill has been saying, like Tua Tagovailoa is the most accurate quarterback that he's ever passed. So I don't know what was out there really trying to pump up his tires right now. Here's the thing, though. The Chiefs have the most difficult schedule in the National Football League, and it's by a lot. I saw a crazy graph that kind of graphed all the teams, and then 32 was way down there just because of how much of a meat grinder the Chiefs' schedule is. Well, think about the Chiefs in the biggest games. And the Bills games last year were the perfect example of it. Mahomes would go from 20 yards rushing to 60 and 70 in games against the Bills. Why? Mahomes could run way more than he does, but the fact of the matter was, more often than not, they haven't needed it. I think that they are going to need to count on Mahomes' running game a little bit more. And listen, that does come with some risk, of course. But when you think about the games and the way that Mahomes has played in the playoffs, think about the game where they were down to Houston. What came back? Well, he was certainly throwing, but he was jumping 15 and 20 yards, taking what offenses gave them, and that was in the running game. And, as long as he stays healthy and they're in games where they're going to need to put up 30 and 35 points to win, I wouldn't be surprised if Patrick Mahomes has an absolutely scorched earth season and proves to everyone once again that he is the number one quarterback in football. And that could mean being the number one fantasy quarterback in football as well. Don't count out number 15. It don't pay to do that.
It doesn't pay to do that. You're right. And you know what? As you mentioned that, I think it'll be interesting to see end of the year. And as the year goes on, those rushing yards, like you said, I think a big part of that is going to have to be, they're going to have to earn back the respect of defenses without Tyreek Hill to have those defenses lay back so that you have a soft coverage right off the top. So Mahomes can run for 10 yards before anyone looks at him. So is Juju Smith-Schuster going to be able to be that guy to stretch it? Is MVS? Is Hardman's hurt? Kelsey, we know what he can do. So Sky Moore, little guy, but he's quick. So I think a lot of it is going to come down to, can this Chiefs offense stretch the field and get that respect from the defense so they have to be softer? That's going to be a big part of it. And then also I wonder how the running backs are used a little bit more. I see Jerick McKinnon is hurt a little bit, but we know he can catch the football. You mix in Ronald Jones with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You have a bit of a mix and match, so you have those little checkdowns.
The guy we're going to be talking about in the Chiefs backfield is none of the three that you just mentioned. It's the sixth round pick, Isaiah Pacheco, that has been the story of training camp right now. And while he probably won't start as the guy, mark my words, Andy, by the time we get to week 10 or week 11, he is going to be the guy I think that the Chiefs are leaning on in the backfield, because I don't want to say the pick of Edwards-Helaire has been a bust, but we're getting into that territory right now, considering where he was picked, and there's a lot of pressure on the Chiefs. I know we're going to be getting into some pretty interesting territory, in these final couple of weeks with preseason games, who's in and who's out. I mean, honestly, most of the time you're just praying you don't see a guy on your team end up getting a serious injury right now. But as far as like the league right now, is there anything in particular you're paying close attention to, in camp and in preseason over the next couple weeks, as far as positional battles or key things that maybe have fantasy relevance that you're still waiting to know before you get to the draft day?
Well, a lot of it was people going to new homes, right? How do they adjust to it? And we've talked about some of them already. Big question with Russell Wilson was, who's going to be Russell Wilson's guy? You got some pieces, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, we talked about, even KJ Hamler a little bit, Tim Patrick, real life wise, it's sad that he's hurt, of course, but him getting injured fantasy wise opened a lot of things up, because then you got one big body guy out of the way. So, okay, what does Russell Wilson look like? Also in the backfield with Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon he made an interesting comment. He's like, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like, hey, this is Javonte's world, man. I'm just living in it. So what does that mean? How big of a season? Because Gordon coming back was a hit to Javonte Williams' fantasy value. So I look at that one. You look at the Miami Dolphins. Miami is one of the most intriguing teams to me, because you mentioned Tyreek Hill pumping the tires at Tua. It's like, let's relax, Tyreek, okay? Tua's, I don't know after this year if Tua is a starting quarterback in the NFL. So let's settle down. What it does is it at least neuters Jalen Waddle's PPR value. Because I loved Waddle, straight PPR. Oh, WR2, book it. That was tremendous. You're going to have to give a lot of touches to Tyreek Hill, a lot, or that positivity is going to switch quickly. So now you look at it, okay, we're downgrading Tyreek Hill from where he was in years past. You're downgrading Jalen Waddle. I still like Mike Gesicki, but how much are they going to be running? Well, then you look at that backfield, and that's a hodgepodge. So that Tua situation. So what I'm going to be tracking the rest of this camp in Miami is, are we seeing any sort of patterns. What's the health? Is there any sort of clarity in that backfield? It just seems like with the Dolphins, there's a lot of stuff, but there's not a lot of, okay, I can count on that guy. And if you can't count on it, then you're chasing your tail and you're riding that fantasy roller coaster of 1 week's good, 1 week's not.
Hey, speaking of the Dolphins, are any of their running backs worth drafting? Who do you think going to be getting the touches?
Man.
Who do we want on the squad?
Well, you know what? When we look at the Dolphins, I'm just going to pull up their depth chart so I get the whole pieces here. Yeah, okay. So we got Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, Sony Michel, and Myles Gaskin. I call him Gaslight Gaskin, Huss. Gaslight Gaskin, because he kept burning me last year, and I kept believing that. I was questioning myself. I kept missing on him. So I don't like Gaskin, and he's fourth on the depth chart. This is a schmoz. This is a disaster of a backfield. Who's going to get touches? Probably a bit of everybody. What is Raheem Mostert at this late stage in his career? Had a nice little surge in San Francisco. I'm not counting on that. Absolutely
He
not.
was great when he played, but the bottom line was he was only in for a little while. Like when he was there, he was a legit running back. And then, of course, Eli Mitchell came in. They moved on from there. And, he's but I'm with you. I mean, if you've got three running backs that are getting touches, you don't have one for fantasy.
And you probably
football.
have four here, Huss. You probably have four. Sony Michel, come on. Sony Michel had a chance last year too. Sony Michel's a guy. What is he going to be doing? So what you're now going to be seeing is who's vulturing. You're guessing. Again, I hate guessing when it comes to fantasy football. You're going to be guessing who's getting a goal line touch. Some of them, all of them. Chase Edmonds is Chase Edmonds as your third down back, as your change of pace guy. Love him. Number one on the depth chart. I don't like that at all. So I personally am going to avoid all Miami running backs. I don't think you can count on anybody with them at all. Do you want to take, if you're feeling one, get him as a depth guy, but do not have any of the Miami running backs as a guy you need to start in your fantasy lineup.
Hey, last one, just because you mentioned Mostert, the team that he left, the 49ers, of course, has Eli Mitchell, who was the big waiver wire pickup early last year and, had a great season. Many people are hanging around, but I'm very interested in your take on this offense with Trey Lance as the number one QB. First of all, I feel that Lance is the biggest boom or bust quarterback in fantasy football this year. I mean, I think that with his ceiling could be top 5. If things don't go well, could potentially not play later on. I mean, I think there's so much unknown. Where are you on Lance and where are you on the Niners?
Here's the thing with Trey Lance, and people make the comparison of either coming from a small school or super raw like a Josh Allen, or Carson Wentz even. Those guys played a lot of college football. You have to remember, Trey Lance barely played last year, and then he appeared in like 3 games the year before in college. So his last full 1 year of college football was 3 years ago. So we're looking at a guy who has all the tools, all the talent. And look, you are with one of the best quarterback-minded coaches in all of football, Kyle Shanahan. So you couldn't have landed in a better spot. But what is this offense going to look like? And I'm totally with you. It would not surprise me if we saw Trey Lance end of the year and he's QB5. And you're like, wow. Or I also wouldn't be surprised if we see him, boy, he's right at the back of the pile because he was running, but he's throwing interceptions. And it's the great unknown. And again, I hate unknowns in fantasy. So what this does, of course, at least with Jimmy G, okay, I know what I got with Jimmy G. I'm getting a dink and dunker, going to run a lot. Trey Lance is going to have to run. Trey Lance has a good arm, but when you start seeing those more complex NFL defenses, are we going to be seeing turnovers, young quarterback? Probably. So what does that mean for Deebo Samuel? Deebo Samuel, who I adore, is being way overdrafted. People are thinking of Deebo Samuel last year. Deebo Samuel has a totally different situation this year. Let's not forget about Brandon Ayuk as well, who's a nice little slot receiver. George Kittle. Where do you draft George Kittle? When he's on the field, arguably as good, if not better, talent-wise than your guy, Travis Kelce. Dude can't stay healthy. Do I want him? Yes. Can I count on him?
Get out of here.
No.
I will not stand. I will not stand for you besmirching the great,
I love
Kelce.
Travis Kelce. But Huss, you have all these situations, and then the running back, should it be Eli Mitchell? Yes. We know by now we can't count on Kyle Shanahan. Nobody knew Trey Sermon was in the doghouse. Nobody. Until week 1 and Eli Mitchell blows up. We're like, what's your, oh yeah. Well, Kyle, that would have been helpful yesterday if you would have told me. You have Jeff Wilson Jr. It can be, you want Eli Mitchell, but again, it could be all over the place when it comes to who to count on in that backfield. So my thing is when You're looking at San Francisco 49er players this year. Tread cautiously. I would look for any of these players. Try to have a safety net from another team. Don't try not to rely on anybody as your whatever position number one, because this offense can be completely unpredictable until we see it in action.
Andy, listen, this has been a lot of fun. Hopefully we can do this on the reg as we get into the season.
Yeah.
Quickly fill people in on what's going on with UFF sports. I know everyone must be geeked. This is the time of the year heading into football season.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah, man. Well, we have our brand new college league, our Ultimate College Fantasy Football League. I'm going to be announcing shortly, Huss. I got 2 to 3 current college football players, because you have the NIL stuff, signing on with us. So as ambassadors, so I'm super pumped about that. The league is tremendous. It's a 36-man roster. We're going to be competing. There's going to be our DFS NFT, so our daily fantasy NFT card game coming out in the next few weeks for college and NFL. And we have our 32-team, 53-man roster. We've talked about this before. Ultimate Fantasy American Football League. How do you find out about all of it? All you do, you go to uffsports.com. And if you want the league, / and put the initials, UFAFL, UCFFL, or just follow me on Twitter at AndyMC81. Tons going on there, and there's a lot more coming. So it's an exciting time of the year.
Well, I'll tell you what, we can maybe chop this up next week and continue to get ready for kickoff. And I'm still waiting to find out when season 2 of our Wrestling Fantasy League will take place, so I can defend the belt on Drop the Belt.
On Drop the Belt. Listen, I'm in first place on like a random league. I couldn't beat you, so I had to go on a different one. Yeah. No, you got the title, brother. You got the title. Absolutely. One of these days we'll be starting a fantasy league for wrestling and UFF sports. Just got to find the time, but yeah, we'll do that soon.
Well, that was a hell of a lot of fun. We'll have to get another season planned at some point next season. Andy,
for sure.
Stay busy. I know you are, my friend, and I'll hit you up and we can do this again next week if you got time.
Absolutely, buddy. Anytime. Talk to you soon.
Right on. There's my guy, Andy McNamara. Make sure to give him a follow on Twitter at AndyMC81 and check out everything he's got going on with UFF Sports. All right. Hey, a big thanks to Princess Auto for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. 1 week today. It's so weird with the Bomber bye week. I've been talking about Bombers catching walleye as opposed to preparing for an opponent, but they've certainly deserved the week off. But next Thursday, Bombers, Princess Auto tailgate party before the game, 5:30. Every game, make sure you get there early. Head outside the stadium to the Princess Auto tailgate zone. Take advantage of $5 beers, $3.50 hot dogs and pop, DJ Finesse spinning, prizes from the Princess Auto crew. It is the place to be before each and every Bomber game. And just picked up that great new sea can from my friends over at Confusion Corner Bar and Grill. So even more options to get drinks before the game, before you go in and see the Bombers do their thing. Of course, Princess Auto is the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. And speaking of the Bomber games and the Princess Auto tailgate party, when you're there, make sure you try the incredible new drink of the summer, the CC and Ginger Ale from our friends at Canadian Club. Ready to drink, RTD, as they say in the game. 6 packs at your favorite beer store or local Manitoba Liquor Mart. And you can also grab it around the stadium on game days at IG Field, along with Canadian Club for your cocktails, as well as the entire Beam Suntory family of drinks. As of course, Canadian Club is the official sponsor of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the official spirit of the blue and gold. Pick it up today. CC and Ginger, beer stores, liquor marts, and of course, Manitoba Liquor Marts for all the great Canadian Club products. And it wasn't a great night for Remis and myself last night with all those horses. There was some money to be made. We didn't make it, but we'll be back at it, or at least I will be next week making picks while Remis is away. I'm sure he'll be able to do it remotely as well, though, because, of course, you can bet online for Assiniboia Downs at hpibet.com, as well as tracks in and around the world. But there's nothing like seeing the horses live at Assiniboia Downs Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night, live racing, 7:30 p.m., and you can give them a call at 885-3330 to get a reservation in the dining room. Get on that world-class prime rib buffet and taking a great night of racing over at Assiniboia Downs. All right, well, this has been a great show. Alex has done a bang-up job getting us through. Let's check in with Michael Remis, though, because I'm interested to know how Remo's afternoon has been for the first time, not having to basically produce the show, but I'm sure he's been keeping an eye on all the maniacs in the chat room and everything else going on. Remo, what did you think? How has your last hour and a half been?
Oh man, keeping up with this chat is something else here. Got to keep everyone in line. I've actually been texting with Alex, giving him some pointers, but I'm also I made a new post on our Instagram and TikTok, just a highlight of our Mason Appleton interview from last week. So check that out. And I just put together a video for YouTube that's going to come out probably tomorrow morning. Just you and Murat talking about from last week, free agents to target, if anyone missed that. I do like putting out highlights on YouTube. Haven't done it as much in August, but we'll be getting back on that train.
Excellent. Another reason, if you haven't already, make sure you've subscribed to the channel, hit that red subscribe button, and join us daily here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, as well as the additional content that Remis has been churning out outside of our regular show hours live at 1 p.m. Central. Now, Reem, let's do the Coolbet lines, and then we'll get to the goodies from last night. Quick check-in on the Canadian Football League. No change in the Elks Red-Black game. This one opened at 4.5 for Ottawa, and it has stayed there throughout the week without a move either way. Cannot say the same for the BC Lions. I got on this BC minus 2.5 when we did the lock shop on Tuesday morning. It went up to 3.5. It went up to 4. It's now 5.5 for BC. Everyone's buying in on the hype around the Lions and quarterback Nathan Rourke, and a lot of people selling the Saskatchewan Roughriders. BC right now 5.5-point favorites. Alouettes opened as 2-point favorites at home against the Ticats. That's now up to 3. And the Calgary Stampeders were 1-point favorites to begin the week. Now Andrew Harris out for the season. That number is at minus 2.5. Full lines available for the Canadian Football League at Coolbet, even on a week without the defending champion world Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Hey, shout out to everyone that rode with me on our parlay for yesterday's quarterfinals. Germany plus 3.5, Switzerland plus 5.5. No, they didn't win, but they both covered. That was sweet. Semifinals are set for tomorrow. Canada versus Czechia. I was going to say the Czech Republic. Now it's Czechia, who had the big upset of the day, beating the United States. Canada right now 2.5 goal favorites at minus 175. We'll look to see if that number actually might go to 3.5, considering what the number is right now. And Finland and Sweden, incredible rivals going at it. The Finns are 1.5 favorites, but getting plus 158. I have a feeling we'll get a relatively lower number on a straight up money line closer to game time. It's all there at Coolbet. If you haven't played before, go to coolbet.com and use the promo code WST on your first deposit for a 100% bonus up to $200. All right, Remo, before we go, I figured that, maybe if Nazem Kadri didn't sign this morning, we'd have a little fun talking about the game last night down at the ballpark. I was there, saw a number of WST listeners. Thanks for saying hi. We had a good time, and I have found, and we've mentioned, we get these great interviews with our guests, and we can put them out, and there's engagement. Absolutely nothing gets engagement like food pics from the ballpark. And we had another couple beauties. This started with the barbecue bowl a couple of weeks ago, and I couldn't believe it was like 250 or 300 likes. So we figured we better fire up a couple more, and there were some beauties last night.
Yeah,
here we go. This is the first. This is Mr. Pierogi, one of the elite items in the ballpark, and that has been my go-to for the last couple of years. I often get the boiled. My buddy Zolt, who was with me yesterday, he ended up going for the fried pierogies. The thought process was, I can't really deep fry them at home, so we'd get them that way. That was an excellent piece that I would say that's on the left field line at Mr. Pierogi, very close to Craft Beer Corner. Speaking of beer, I've got to give a shout out to Brett, the best beer man in the game. And he's been the beer guy at the ballpark for, I don't know how long, but Rian Marcoux from the Bombers tweeted me back when I put this out. Pairs well with the little brown jug from a Hall of Fame beer guy. He said, Brett is still there. He was working there when I was working at Goldie's Grill back when I was 15 years old. So he's got a lot of experience and is the most polite individual, maybe in the service industry. Tips the cap to the fans after a nice tip. He certainly deserved that last night, but then we took it to another level. I was still hungry. I'd had a few 1919s. It was time for me to get into it. And then, as the tweet says, butter chicken has entered the chat. First time I'd ever tried the butter chicken from Clay Oven. It was absolutely phenomenal. And no surprise, much like the barbecue bowl of last week, my notifications have literally not stopped going off since I posted these yesterday. We shouldn't be surprised.
You figured it out, Huss. Like, what were we doing? Starting Winnipeg Sports Talk. Winnipeg Food Talk has been where it's at. Big area, big hole in the market that we can get in on, or stadium food. And you've definitely hit the mark here with going to the Gold Eyes and trying, I don't want to say everything, but trying a lot. And I don't know. I honestly don't know how you had that program, assuming you shared that with those guys and then went for the butter chicken, because that's pretty impressive.
I housed the entire butter chicken, and I had a pierogi. I often get the pierogies, but yes, for those people that were wondering. And by the way, there were some ridiculous comments back too. I don't know how people immediately go there. Yeah.
Yeah, the comments are like asking you about your bathroom habits after eating all that. I was like, who's writing this on social media? That's disgusting. Like, no one's thinking about that. I'm looking at this. I'm thinking about great, delicious food. Other people go Newton's law, every law, what for every action, equal and opposite reaction. They're going for the reaction, not the action. It's disgusting.
And I had no issues whatsoever, nor did we after the barbecue bowl a couple of weeks ago, where some people, it might have been the same people that concerned. I think maybe if people have those reactions themselves, they just assume that everybody else does. But no, it was smooth sailing. Great night at the ballpark. The only thing that could have been better was if the Gold Eyes had won. And but as I say, win or lose, it's always great going down there to Shaw Park with what's going on. I will say this. I will make this commitment to you. Adam Droward, thanks so much. $20 in the super chat. Enjoy your vacation, Remo. Much deserved, man. Absolutely. Remo will be back tomorrow. But yeah, next week will be the first time where he'll be gone. I guess he'll be here for one day. And the better part of the next couple of weeks, Alex will be hanging out with us, getting us on the air and through till 3 p.m. or shortly there afterwards. But Gold Eyes are on the road after tonight, assuming they get this game in, for a 10-day road trip, and then they're back for 7 before the playoffs. And I will be doing the Grand Slam sandwich at some point from the Big Smoke Barbecue. I saw that at the game on Friday. I could not believe it, and we'll save that. That might be the closing item of our tour of concession and ballpark food, and may have to start doing this at Bomber games as well, and certainly Jet games. But as we all know, the Gold Eyes, when it comes to food at the park, have really, really raised the bar. Folks, great show today. Jet Oil Tom, $5. Love the food picks and advice. I will be your go-to guy for advice. If you're going to the game, you can tweet me at Hustlerama. I'll give you some picks, some do's and don'ts, and the best places to go to eat at the ball game. It's the least I can do. It is one of the few things that I would consider myself an expert in. All that being said, though, Reem, a great show today. And I guess we got to give a big thanks to Alex for doing such a great job getting us through this first show. And it should be smooth sailing, even with you taking off for a few days. It's such an important part of this show every single day.
Yeah, this has been a bit of a change here for me today, but nice to know that I'm able to take some time off. I know you took some before, and it was nice, to know that we're able to do that now. I believe me, I was worried for a while that I'd never get a day off ever, but here we are. It's going great, so thank you.
Well, this is going to be good. I took my 2 days. Remis is taking 2 weeks. Fair? I'm not sure,
No,
that's just the way that it's going.
Hey, you took.
I'm kidding.
You took a bunch last year. I haven't taken one.
I'm joking.
I'm going for. I think I'm taking 8 days. I'll be here. What day? I'm taking next Tuesday. I'll be in, and the Friday after I'll be in. I made sure I'd be back for that marble race.
Yes, indeed. I have to just quickly check out the chat. Some people, Stormy and Cabillas, Huss, you going to do a Walby burger? Eric, Huss versus the Wallaby Burger, that's a no. There's no way I'd be able to do that. And I'm a notoriously slow eater. It might take 2 games for me to get through one of those things. Although, if I do see somebody taking one down at the game, I'll try and get a picture of it and put it on social media. A good reason, by the way, if you haven't already, give me a follow on Instagram at Hustlerama. Got a great picture of my guy, me and Dancing Gabe yesterday. Threw that one up on my Instagram story. So do that. But most importantly, make sure you're following Sports Talk at Sports Talk WPG on all your socials. Remo's throwing some great stuff up on TikTok, Instagram, and more. And that's basically it. We'll see whether, oh yes, comment, Huss calling out the wave was epic. By the way, we did get a like from a member of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers of that tweet earlier today. So the players notice as well. There's a time for the wave. That wasn't it. And as I say, I'm not saying that was the reason they lost, but it did somewhat sort of curse them. And we all know karma is very much real. Listen, we got to get going because we got to get this podcast up. But big thanks to Alex for doing a great job for day number 1, hanging with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And Remo, you will be back. Tomorrow's a Friday show. Huge show. We've got a marble race, a special appearance from Sarah Orleski talking about her move from TSN to the Jets. Brandon Rowicki's going to pop by. Hacksaw on Friday. Marbles going to be a great one. So do not miss it, folks. In the meantime, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel and podcast. Do us a favor. Tell a friend about what we've got going on every day here and let them know how they can check us out. And most importantly, be here tomorrow, 1 p.m., live on YouTube, and later in the afternoon on the podcast to get you ready for the weekend, including Sarah Orleski. Really looking forward to tomorrow's show. Have a great one tonight. We'll see you in less than 22 hours right here on WST.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.